Alrighty, let's see. We should have everything good to go here. Ignore the guy speaking French in the chat. I don't even know why he's bothering to say that about a completely pointless game. But no, BTS, I know that guy. I didn't get the chance to text him back earlier, and now he's upset with me. Let's see here. Let me get all this stuff pulled up. Alrighty, so got the game here on this side. And let me get to some of the comments here. Let me turn this volume down just a little bit more. Okay. So first, let me get some comments here, and then I'll do some talking and everything. Sorry, guys, I'm a little rusty because when I don't do streams or anything for a little while, I forget how to do anything. BTS Yellow, what's up, buddy? How did Skylar Brindamore land on that number? I don't know. I guess since 77 got taken by Jankowski, and that's what he was wearing last, he just decided to go one down and take that. But a lot of times players they get assigned numbers a lot of times too, so that's also a factor as well. So let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is really cool. This thing where they're showing everything with Rod and Skyler. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I mean, I can care less if Carolina wins this game or not tonight. They basically have their AHL team in the lineup, so this should be fun and interesting game. No expectations. It's not pointless for us. Yeah, I mean, I guess that you're wondering if you'd rather play Montreal or rather play Columbus. I mean, it should be something Washington should win either way, I would imagine. But so Nikishin for U.S. visa so he could meet the guys when they get back. I guess I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. Demidov got his pretty quick. I don't know what the holdups were with Nikishin getting his, but I am curious to see what happens when he gets here. I already know that there's going to be a lot of questions and everything about hey, is there any possibility he's going to draw into the lineup? And the answer is an emphatic no, unless there is an injury or somebody just plays so damn badly that they don't really have a choice but to put him in the lineup. Now, if it were up to me, I know I'm going to catch some heat from people for this. Burns would not be in the lineup over Nikishin potentially, depending on how, say, the first couple of games went. Looking at this completely objectively, depending on how the first couple of games went, I would potentially be okay, if Burns is not playing well or Orlov's not playing well or whatever, then I'm going to be hey, do you have an idea of what's going on here, Sasha? Okay, get in there. But there's also the language barrier. He's never played in the NHL before. Now, a lot of people say, well, with rookies X, Y, and Z. The difference is here with Nikishin is he's not a rookie in the traditional sense. He's been playing in what is arguably the second best league in the world for the last 5 seasons. And he wasn't just a good player there. He was a great one. He was a mainstay. He was the best defenseman in the KHL. So it's not like you're just bringing over some really good KHL prospect. You're bringing over a player who is incredibly talented, has the physicality to boot, skates really well, and any learning curve he has is not an indictment on him as an individual. It's just how the system is, and he has to adapt to it and everything like that. So it would kind of be a sort of maybe a situation like that potentially. I would like for him to be in the lineup, but I'm not expecting it to happen unless there's an injury. If there's an injury, I think that he comes in. I really do, but I'm not expecting him to be in. That's going to piss a lot of people off, but I've already kind of accepted it, and I'm also under. I am pretty convinced Burns or Orlov will be back next season. That will piss me off if it's Burns. Orlov, I can maybe kind of understand for the sake of getting Nikishin acclimated to North America. Burns coming back is completely inexcusable, especially if you still have Morrow. And even if you trade Morrow, I'd rather go get, again, I'm going to piss people off. I'd rather just go get Tony DeAngelo back in free agency. then I would sooner bring Brent Burns back. I'm sorry. Tony had his defensive issues, but at least he had speed. He could get back and cover for his mistakes, and he brought plenty of offense. Burns is not even producing the offense anymore. So it's not very advantageous for Slavin to have a guy to his right that he has to constantly bail out if he's not producing. That just makes no sense whatsoever. BTS says, I'm going CBJ all the way. Dylan says he was approved, so I would assume he can travel to Raleigh now. I can see game one maybe because nothing facing elimination, obviously, in an early game. I doubt it. I really don't think he will be in the lineup unless either there's an injury or somebody just plays so incredibly bad that they bring him in, because you're not going to have to worry about seeing 11-7 in the postseason because you're going to have all the black aces on the roster. Typically when 11-7 happens, it's because of a roster constraint with the amount of spots that you have taken up and everything like that. After the trade deadline, when the salary cap is basically turned off and you can grab like whoever and you can have as many players on the roster as you want, no factor at that point, then that's a different story. BTS says, is he more Makar level or Hedman? Nikishin, Hedman. I'd say he kind of falls in between those two, but he's definitely closer to being a Victor Hedman than a Cale Makar. The closest thing there is to Cale Makar in this league is Quinn Hughes. And I say that as someone who is not very fond of the Hughes brothers at all, but if there's any of them that I can say that I like, that I think is actually as advertised as Quinn, Jack and Luke can both go fuck themselves, especially Luke, because that kid is not nearly as good as people think he is. I'm sorry, but he's not. And, you know, it's like one of the things I'm going to talk about when I do the series forecast in regards to the Canes and the Devils is a lot of people think that we're just going to walk all over the Devils because Jack Hughes is out of the lineup. I don't think Jack Hughes is their best forward. I don't think Jack Hughes is their second best forward. At best, he's their third best forward. If I could have anybody on that team, I'm taking, as far as the forwards go, I'm taking Nico Heischer and Jesper Bratt before I'm even remotely thinking about touching Jack Hughes as far as like players I would build a team around. He's pretty useless in 1/3 of the ice. So it's just the way it is. He can't kill penalties. He's good on the power play, but like Jack Hughes is not what people think he is. And I think that kind of got exposed a little bit during the Four Nations face-off because the only people who defended him were those weirdos that have 7 teams in their profile and, you know, all the other weird shit that they do. Y'all already know who I'm talking about. Blackie, what's up, buddy? Burns coming back in his age 41 season would be the most idiotic, hilarious thing to happen to this team in the offseason, LMAO. Yeah, if that happens, I'm going to be pissed. I can't think of anybody except for that Kevin guy who constantly defends everything that Brent Burns does. And that's about it as far as people who would be like, oh, no, this is a great idea. No, the fuck it's not. Like, if he was still producing, fine. But sending Jacob Slavin out there without somebody on his right who's going to produce offense is wasting Jacob Slavin. It really is. He doesn't need to be out there babysitting somebody, or I won't say babysitting, being a safety valve for somebody who isn't producing. There is no justifying that. When you have Scott Morrow, you can make a trade and get a better right-handed defenseman. Like, for example, Evan Bouchard may be on the market because of the cap constraints that Edmonton would be facing to get him signed, considering how much money they're about to dump into Connor McDavid. You could potentially get someone like him, who I think the defensive side of his game has come a long way, but he's also got the highest average shot velocity of any defenseman in the league the last that I looked. And he's good at what he does offensively. That's someone that you could consider, you know, maybe trying to go out and get. And a cap-constrained team, basically, you just have to outbid anybody else. So, User 923 says, when the hell is the game going to start? I don't know. It's these Canadian broadcasts, a lot of times they tend to like start a little bit later. I've seen that before. Like when the last game I was at with AB and our friend Jeremy, it didn't start until like 25 minutes after it normally would have, but that was because of all the Hockey Night in Canada stuff there and everything. That's when they were playing against Edmonton that one night and were piss poor and deservingly lost. It was a Saturday. All Canes Network, imagine how funny it'll be when SBA gets a Hattie. If he does that against this team, because like that would actually be really something. Like, I know I've made my jokes. I've saw people calling him Bronny Brindamore and all this other shit. And, you know, whether you agree with him getting called up or not, I personally didn't, because I feel like that you need guys like Robidas, Suzuki, people who are farther up on the depth chart than him that would potentially draw into the lineup if you're talking about catastrophic amounts of injuries. They're going to get on the ice before Skylar Brindamore does. And that's not anything against Skylar Brindamore. If you get paid to play hockey, or if you get paid to play any sport, but we'll keep it hockey specific, if you get paid to play a sport, you are good at it. You will not find anybody walking around on the street who is better at hockey than Brent Burns. It's just the way it is. You just won't. There's a very select few people who can replace him. There's a very select few people in this world who can do what these guys do for a living, and that doesn't apply just to this league. I see people talking about, oh, I could play in the SPHL. Okay, get out there and do it. I guarantee you will not last a fucking shift. All the people saying this player is a merchant of this player won't last a fucking lap at public skate without falling over and destroying their fucking face. If you get paid to play, you're good at it. That's all there is to it. That's with anything. Any watch party in the parties in the playoffs? Dylan Bollinger asked. No, probably not. So you can't really see it behind my microphone, and I don't want to move it because of how sensitive this cord is in it, and it likes to pop out really easy. But there's a bunch of boxes over there stacked up, like a bunch of plastic containers that are filled with a lot of my shit, and there's even more out in the living room and in that closet right there and everything else. So once we're done getting moved and everything like that, then I'm going to try to start doing Landfall Hour and Damage Report, and I'm going to try to do it for every single playoff game because I'm not going to have a job for a few weeks. So my big priorities are going to be fasting, doing a bunch of cardio, skating, and trying to really grow the channel during that time frame. So Reese Bailey, what's up, buddy? If Burns comes back, then Scott Morris should demand a trade immediately because I think he's been NHL ready for at least a year now. Yeah, and even if he's not NHL ready right at that particular moment, I would understand the rationale of him demanding a trade, because it's like, you know, he saw his path to the show pretty clearly, and then if Burns comes back, that's gone unless they trade Sean Walker or Jalen Chatfield, of which neither one of those guys should be moved. But it's like, all right, game's getting ready to start here. I'll get back to you on that. Good defensive play by Jankowski covering up there on that back check. That was really good. All right, during this stoppage right here. But yeah, it's like, if, you know, players, when they have a clear path to where they're going, it's one thing. Try his patience a whole lot. He's got some defensive work to do, Morrow does, but he's at the point where he's a better option to be in the lineup than Burns. I'm sorry, but he is. And I hate to say that stuff about Burns because I like the guy. And like I said, I can never do his job. He'll be 90 years old and in a wheelchair and still be better at hockey than I am. But fact of the matter is, if this team is going to actually get serious and win something, he can't be back there. And to accommodate having him, you would have to go out and get another left-handed shutdown defenseman other than Slavin if you did want to bump him down to the third pair. And honestly, that's not worth it. Not with everything we have in the system. All right. Good pinch there by Dima. Look out. God, this is scary. Burns and Orlov on the same pair. Oh, my God. A lot of shin pads will be tested tonight. You know, this game kind of reminds me of way back in, like, it was the first playoffs, first NHL playoffs that happened after I left home when I joined the Navy. And I remember back then, I had cable in my barracks room, and I had to order the NHL Center Ice stuff. This was like before, like, you could like pull it up on the PS3 or whatever I had back then. And all they had to do was win one game against Tampa, and I think that they would get in the playoffs over the Rangers, and they totally fucking shit the bed. I think they lost that game 6-2, because I remember I watched like the first period, and then I was driving out to Chesapeake to play pickup, And then I got out to the rink and I look at the TV when I walk in there and I saw it like went from 2-0 to 4-0. And I'm like, well, that ain't good. And then by the time I got off the ice, I think it was 6-2. If I remember correctly. Montreal's kind of in a position like that tonight, a win and you're in type of situation, or hell, not even a win and you're in, to get a point and you're in. I wouldn't mind Columbus making it, though, just because that franchise has been through a lot of stuff. Good poke check there by Cooch and actually being under control with it. All right, let's see. User 923, what's up, buddy? Connor McDavid to the Canes. he would turn into like an 80-point player probably with us if that were to happen. I don't think he would be happy playing somewhere like this theoretically, even if it did happen. But I don't see any reason right now why he wouldn't leave Edmonton, especially considering they did make it to the finals last year and they nearly clawed their way back. If they build a little bit better of a team around him with the cap going up and everything like that, I don't see any reason why he would leave. If he wins a cup there, I don't see any reason. I don't see any reason why he would leave if they keep making deep runs, because then he could go to another team that potentially would not be making deep runs. And then, the clock is ticking for him. He's got a long career left ahead of him still, but like it goes away really fast. That's what I've been trying to tell people when they're saying, oh, well, the Canes have plenty of time with this core to win a cup. Okay, well, one season, you kind of fall short. Or you have another transition year, you have injuries or whatever. Cup windows, they come and go pretty fast. It seems like just yesterday, or it was 2021, and we were talking about how we were entering our window, and then our window was allegedly closed, and then these guys played their ass off this year and exceeded expectations. Ooh, more on Gostisbehere. This is going to be interesting to see. It's also kind of scary, though, because between those two, like, Gostisbehere is going to have to be the more defensive guy between those two. Alrighty. Good outlets pass there by Morrow. Yeah, Burns, Orlov, and Svechnikov wearing A's is that's a new one to me. Oh, good save. Good quick zone exit there. Man, y'all know how much I love KK, but watching him skate is like, I don't want to call it comical, but Jesus Christ, his edges are not the greatest, and he's really unstable on his feet. It's just so clunky. But he's got a lot of reach and his stride's really long. He covers a lot of ice really quick. He doesn't have quick feet, but he is fast. And it's kind of the same thing with Jordo. He doesn't accelerate very fast, but once he's in full flight, then the stride extension takes over. And yeah, the entries are really easy for Montreal right now, but I expected that with who we've got in the line. Oh, shit. Goalie goal. Yep. Skyler kind of screened his own goalie there. He was trying to box out Caulfield, but I think that's the last thing I think Skylar Brennamore was the last thing that Kochetkov saw before that puck went in the net. BTS says, do you think there's a chance SBA actually makes the Canes lineup with our current prospects coming up? Absolutely not. We've got plenty of guys who can fill in that fourth line depth center role, and he's, like I said, if you get paid to play, you're good at it. But as far as that list goes, he's below Robidas and Suzuki, in my opinion. Now, I don't think Suzuki's going to be here next season. I think he's going to go sign somewhere where he actually can play for the big club. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Montreal, actually, if he went to go play with his brother. However, I don't think Skyler is that type of player to where he can be a mainstay in the NHL as a depth center. Like I said, he's good at what he does, but he might, if he's going to actually make it to the NHL, he's got to go somewhere where the depth chart isn't so full. So we'll see. Dylan Bollinger says Morrow has like 5 or 6 points in 11 games and is improving every game. Yeah, like I said, it's the defensive side of his game that he really needs to work on. He's definitely a high risk, high reward type of player. The defensive side of his game definitely needs some work, and it's not a lack of effort; it's a lack of awareness. Because I remember when I was at the game in Washington last week, on Washington's fourth goal, which that 4-minute sequence. Well, the Canes were bad the entire second period. Like, I was actually getting fucking irritated that I went through the trouble of going to that game at that point. And then there was about a 4 or 5 minute sequence where they got scored on twice, and they really, really just lost control of that game. And they managed to battle back in the third. But if Carolina was just above mediocre in the second period, they would have ran away with that game. And they were absolute dog shit, and they did it to themselves. So, I mean, we even got a free goal from Tom Wilson fucking running Jackson Blake in the numbers. And still, like, they should have walked away with that game very, very easily. So, but yeah, Morrow got caught looking on one. He got caught puck watching on Washington's fourth goal, and it kind of infuriated me because all he had to do was take an extra step and get a stick in there, and maybe that doesn't happen, but he got lost in the defensive zone. His zone defense wasn't good that night, so. BTS says leave Orlov out of it. Yeah, I can't, dude. I'm sorry. He's infuriated me on multiple occasions this year. If they bring him back to play with Sasha, then, that's one thing. But, just to help him get acclimated. So if they brought him back for a year, maybe 2, I wouldn't be too upset because his minutes wouldn't be so important. But for the most part, I'm ready to move on from this defensive setup we have because I feel like what we have ahead is significantly better. All Canes Network says Burns and Orlov with the A looks weird. Yeah, that does look weird. Svetch also has the hey, this is weird. Yeah, that's strange to me, but with their tenures and their experience combined, that it makes sense why they would have it. KK sure as hell wasn't going to get it. Lackey goalie goal, yeah. All Canes Network says, yeah, we screwed over Columbus. Yeah, we kind of did. And then Reese Bailey says the only NHL trait Skylar Brind'Amour has is face-offs, in my opinion. Yeah, like I said, I don't know a ton about Skylar Brind'Amour. It's just out of everybody we have on the depth chart, it's just he's not going to be my first choice in any situation where we need to call somebody up. Like, there's literally at least at a minimum, if you're talking about guys who could play fourth line center, I would say there's 3 options ahead of him. That's Juha Jaksa, Justin Robidas, and Ryan Suzuki. Whatever order you want to put them in, that's the order I personally put them in. Robidas impressed me with the fundamental aspects of the game. He's not a very flashy player, and, he's not very big, but he's built like a damn refrigerator. So guys like that are that small that can still play physical and have that low of a center of gravity and everything like that, like we've seen that with Jarvis a lot, they can, and we're seeing it now with Stankoven as well, that can be quite the difference-making type of thing here. This is riveting right here. Oof. That's not Burns' fault there. Just kind of rolled on him when Stankoven was trying to sauce it to him. Literally the best defensive defenseman we have in the lineup tonight is Sean Walker. There you go. Bradley Nadeau laying the body in there. Okay, go. Get out. Good exit. Okay, let's see if... I want to see Nadeau get a few shots. I want to see what his shooting mechanics look like now at the NHL level. Good keep-in by Sean Walker there. The Canes, they look like they're trying to establish something in the offensive zone there. And I think it's a lack of familiarity. Like I said, I'm not expecting them to win this game. I'm just doing this to kind of see how a lot of our, prospects look in the lineup and everything like that. But at the same time, though, like, it's not totally out of the question that they could win. See, now they're starting to, like, establish the offensive zone and spend some time down there and get some shots on and everything. Shot right on. Let's see who we got out there now. Hall, KK, and Svechnikov. Oh, shit. Okay, I'm actually really happy with how Kochekov handled that because I was expecting the poke check at the top of the circle, and he actually stayed really calm there and handled that breakaway really well. Which defensive pair was out there? That doesn't surprise me. Oh, Canes Network says, I'm surprised Suzuki isn't with the team. Yeah, me too. I mean, like I said, I'm not a gigantic Ryan Suzuki believer by any means, but I think that he should have been here instead of Skylar Brindamore. But, at the same time, Rod and his family have done a ton for this franchise. And for what criticisms I've had of some of his game management and coaching decisions, this team might not be in Raleigh if it wasn't for Rod Brindamore. So this is one of those things I'm not particularly upset about. Perplexed a little bit, but not mad. Canes aren't playing too bad. Yeah, for the lack of familiarity, it's not bad at all. Like when you have guys who don't normally play together managing to establish the offensive zone and get a couple of shots in there and everything like that and get the forecheck going and everything, then, that's a good sign. The transition game's a little bit off, but that's one of those things that you really have to build chemistry for, in my opinion. A lot of times it's like when you get it set up in the offensive zone, if everyone's moving their feet well enough and working hard enough, a lot of times you can maintain it. Making quick neutral zone transitions and everything like that, because that's one of the quickest aspects of the game. That takes a little bit of time to get down with your line mates and everything like that. So, yeah, they're not playing bad at all, circumstances considered. That was Orlov Burns, too. Yeah, it definitely was. Reese Bailey said the Wolves have a game at 8. Otherwise, I think more would have been called up. It's tough for Nadeau to establish anything playing on different lines the entire game. Yeah, that's true. And the rookies will make mistakes. That's a given, but as long as they learn, absolutely. Yeah, Suzuki is 23. He won't be making the team next year. I think we should let him go. We're going to. He's going to go somewhere else where he actually has a chance to make it, because there's no room for him here. Oh, that's cool. Ghost stepped up and got just enough in there to keep him from getting a clean shot. If I do switch out of my CCM Tax 710 or Resistance helmets, I might go to the Bauer React 150. I think it's a really good looking helmet. I've tried it on before, so I know it fits me properly. If I change my helmet, that's what I'm going to go to. That's a high stick. They got it. Okay. Of the stoppage variety. Has Fensori been on the ice? Yes. Yeah, I thought he was. I thought I saw him a couple of times. It seems like they're shuffling the defensive pairs a little bit too, just to kind of like maybe see what has some chemistry for the future and everything like that. Because Walker and Gostisbehere are out there right now, and they had Gostisbehere and Morrow out there at one point. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of different lines jumbled up tonight just because of, lack of familiarity, lack of chemistry, all that type of stuff. And then not to mention, it's like, I don't want to say they're not taking this game seriously because they are, but it's also like, don't go out there and be a hero tonight. It's not necessary at all. Oof. Good seam pass there. Sean Walker has impressed me so much, man. There we go. That little move there by Sean Walker was great. Make that whole opportunity happen. See, that's what Svechnikov's got to do is go to those dirty areas like that and use his frame. When he does that, it really, really helps. Burns, dude, come on. Jesus Christ, man. And now we're going to have to kill a penalty. Interested to see who we put out here for this. I'm guessing it's going to be any combination of Walker, Gostisbehere, Orlov. As far as the killers go, I think you'll have, or as far as the forwards go, I think you'll have KK, Carrier, Robinson, definitely. I'm interested to see what that looks like when they get back from the Burger King commercial here. I don't like Burger King. The only thing I like from it is the croissants for breakfast, and I went to go get one yesterday. I was 3 minutes too fucking late to get one because I didn't want to wake up. I'm enjoying sleeping in for the first time in a while for more than just the weekend. Because a lot of times on the weekend I can't sleep in either because I was going to work all the time. But let's see what we got here. Halsey, Hall extension win. Aaliyah Yasmin says, I cannot wait for Hall's extension. Yeah, me neither. I'm hoping that they still bring him back. I'm not entirely sure if the organization believes Nadeau is ready. If he is, like, I don't think Roslovic's coming back, for example. That would give a spot to Nadeau. Taylor Hall, I think they absolutely need to bring him back just because, one, he's a good fit, and two, the experience factor. He could really, really help out guys like Bradley Nadeau in particular in refining the parts of their game that they need to get going. So I'm actually like, I really hope they bring him back. Dylan Ballinger says Halsey also got on the big poster on Lenovo Center, we are keeping him. That's a good sign. That is a good sign. PK time will be interesting, but watch Rod give SBA more PK time. Yeah, and I'm betting he's going to be on the power play as well. But KK needs to get an extensive look here at the penalty kill because a couple of seasons. Okay, well, we don't have to worry about Skylar Brindamore killing this particular penalty. But we need to see KK on the penalty kill again because he was doing it back in the 22-23 season, and I thought he did excellent. So, and he's the guy who's eventually going to take over the mantle, the role of Jordan Stahl as far as what he does on the ice, not like the captaincy or anything. But this would be a good time to kind of get a look at that, if you ask me. Ali Yasmin says, yeah, I would be disappointed if we brought Roslovic back. Yeah, a 0% chance Roslovic comes back. There's just no need for him. And we've got multiple players who could potentially replace him, primarily Nadeau. So there's no reason to bring Roslovic back. I wish him all the best, but he's not a good fit here. He's like a faster version of Michael Bunting in a lot of ways. So all right, let's see what we got here. Burns, Orlov, Robinson, and Jankowski. You okay? I know the man-on-man defense has its benefits, but one of its big drawbacks, I do not like it on the penalty kill. I don't like it at all. Oh, that was really smart play there by Mark Jankowski. Just kill a little bit of extra time, hit the brakes, do a quick little button hook, and throw it below the goal line. That was excellent. Not out there to do anything fancy, just out there to get the job done, which is the way it should be. Fucking Lane Hudson. Nice shooting, soldier. Okay, they got Finn Sori out there for the penalty kill. I'm going to keep an eye on this here. Wow, that was good. Good gap, good stick. Colby, what's up, dude? Jankowski on the PK has been a wonderful plus after the trade. I've seen all his underlying numbers were good, but man, he is an all-around player. Yeah, he's very complete. Looks like Tyson Jost is going to the box for something here. Wow, him and Rod are both irate. I've seen Rod get mad plenty of times, but like he's going the fuck off right now. No way. That's not a face-off violation. That was the butt end of the stick. His glove never touched it. Oh, okay. Maybe it did from the other angle. It looks like it. Okay, yeah. That's not a penalty. That's not a delay of game face-off violation. You just put a new guy in the circle for that. Okay, they got it. All right. Jesus, Rod is fucking pissed. And see, this is just weird seeing him and Wes talk like this because him and Wes McCauley are friends. They played together at Michigan State. See, like the face-off violation rule in regards to like using your hand, I've always felt like that's something that should be changed a little bit. Where it's like if you still have both hands on the stick and you just like fall forward and try to sweep it, then try to sweep it away with the stick instead of it being the free hand. I think they should just let them keep playing at that point instead of like, blowing it dead or potentially calling a penalty. It's just I feel like that interrupts the game for no reason. If you still have both hands on the stick when you're doing that, who the fuck cares? That's what I've always thought about that. There's a few rules in hockey, that being one of them, that I would change, and there's some of them I would outright eliminate, like the trapezoid. I would just get rid of that shit. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore, and honestly, it would be one less thing that the officials have to worry about. Reese says Ghost laughing on the bench. Yeah, I saw that. That was hilarious. He's just kind of like, well, this is just another Wednesday to me. I've seen this before. It is Wednesday, right? Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure. It's weird. I don't really keep up with what day of the week it is as much now since I don't have to go to work for a while. You see Hall laughing. Yeah, I saw both of them laughing. That was kind of funny, really. Rod's over there losing his mind, and Gostisbehere and Hall are just there laughing at whatever he had to say. There, Kraft, what's up, dude? Hi, buddy. Long time no see. Good to see you. Aaliyah Yasmin also says, Cooch has looked decent. Yeah, I think he has too. That first one wasn't entirely on him. That was just he got sniped. We need to Mike Rod for the playoffs. I don't know if the world's ready for that, buddy. That would be something. Because I remember the Washington series a few years ago, watching him lose it, and I was in a group chat with a bunch of Caps fans because I was on a hockey team with them and everything. Step up on him, KK. You got to get there. All right, that'll work. Robinson got in there and got that done. But I was in a group chat with a bunch of them, and like a lot of them were kind of like, let me put it this way. Actually, I'll talk about this in the next TV timeout, but it'll be something funny. Daraj Ozul, that is a name I haven't heard in a while. Checking in from the JOB. How's it going, bud? It is going good, pal. I am moving back to the South in a few days. I'm finally coming home. I'm getting out of DC. About the only things that I'm going to experience the same are traffic, which it might even still be better down there in the Charleston area, and heat and bugs and shit like that a little bit more frequently. Good save there by Cooch. But I'm ready to get out of here. I'm ready to live somewhere that I like a whole lot more. And apparently sweet tea was invented in Somerville, and there's like a little like factory restaurant sweet tea place there. So I'm going to go try that out. It's like a sweet tea bar or something. I forget what it's called, but I'm really looking forward to that. The aircraft says mic'd up Rod might get Carolina canceled. It just might, but actually, if I could mic anybody up, who I would like to have mic'd up like 24/7. If someone said pick a Canes player to be put under cast iron surveillance for the rest of his life, and if he's not funny, we're going to shoot you in the head, it would be Jarvis. I think that guy would provide all the entertainment the world would need. And just when you think you've seen it all, he'd come up with something else. Ali Yasmin said, LOL, I would kill for a mic'd up Rod. Well, I can decipher some of the words that he says. There's one that he uses a lot that sounds and looks like duck, or sounds like duck. So it's, oh shit. Walker's got him. That's another guy I just don't care for, is Juraj Slavkovsky. I cannot fucking stand him. I don't know why. It's like, I don't know. He comes off to me as like the stereotypical 90s jock that, at the end, he like loses his girl to some nerd at the end of the movie or something. Like, that's what he's always come off to me as. Like, he's an okay hockey player, but people were saying he was the next Yager. No, the fuck he's not. Daraj Ozul says, nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming home, dude. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. I've been wanting to come home for a long time, and it'll be about 3 hours south of where I'm originally from, about 4 hours from Raleigh. So I'll make some more home games when the NHL gets another team in Atlanta. I'll definitely be going there, especially if I can manage to, maybe I can get really lucky and get to go to a Braves game and a Canes game on the same day. That would be really, really awesome if I could do that. That would be my next hope. So Dylan Bollinger says, great shift from Morrow. Yes, absolutely. Thayer says, you would definitely survive if Jarvis was your pick. Yeah, if I could have anybody mic'd up 24/7, it would be Jarvis. See, that's more of what I want to see from Kochetkov, those moments where he doesn't just spaz out and stays calm. He just sealed that post, collected that puck, and played it. So the more of that you see of Kochetkov, the better. I'm not really convinced anymore that he's a starter. I was hoping that this year would give me definitive evidence of that, but I'm just not seeing it. And shin pad for Unk. And Carrier is getting his chin checked out there. The aircraft says, I feel so bad for the physical and mental well-being of all Columbus fans watching this game. Not all of them. There was one that was being a dick earlier, and he was like, this is why you guys are never going to get past the second round. You never take anything seriously. I'm like, bro, it's game 81. Everybody who can rest players is resting players. Like, Washington did the exact same thing against them this past weekend. The exact same day that we eliminated the New York Rangers from the playoffs. Oh, yeah, that should have been a penalty. I don't know how Christian Dvorak should have got a penalty for that. Like, I don't care. Aaron's high stick, but it's still a penalty. That should have been 4 minutes. They straight up missed that one. Dominic, some good stuff from him so far. Yeah, I agree. Carrier went slowly to the bench. Yeah, I think he just got he got cut on the chin, and he probably got his bell rung a little bit from that. Facts, the narrative that we were the only team resting players is absurd. This is a meaningless game from the Hurricanes' perspective. And you know another thing that they act like we're the only ones who do? So there's a couple of these douchebags that are reporters for the Hockey News. And I have nothing against the Hockey News as a whole. Ryan Hinkle is really, really awesome. I absolutely love referencing his work. But the fact of the matter is the Hockey News and the hockey writers and fan-sided and shit like that, they I'm trying to put this nicely, they will hire anybody with a pulse who can put a couple of paragraphs together. So there's a couple of these douchebags that work for the New Jersey Devils aspect of the Hockey News who constantly write shit that's not true. One of them's name is Jay something, and the other one, I don't remember what, but he looks like a cuck. I mean, they both look like cucks, but the more cuck looking of the two published some stupid ass article the other day talking about how the Hurricanes were geo-restricting ticket sales. And I'm like, yeah, like fucking everybody does that. Like everyone fucking does that. It's not irregular. If you try and buy, it's like, I think what their standpoint of it is like, if you live in New Jersey and you try to buy tickets to the Rangers, or if you live in Philadelphia and you try to buy tickets to the Devils, or if you live in upstate New York and you try to buy tickets to the Islanders or something like that, maybe there's no problem. Proximity considered, that makes sense. One of my best friends, I got to have him on here again, Steve. He was actually on the show during the playoffs last year. He's a Rangers fan, but he's from Long Island. So there it makes a little bit more sense. Whereas somewhere like here, that doesn't make any sense at all. But if you think the Dallas Stars or I'm pretty sure the California teams do the geo restriction and everything like that. But if you think that like we're the only ones who do that geo restriction shit, and if it only happens in hockey, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Everybody does that. Like quite literally. There have been times where like I've tried, like I looked at getting tickets to go to New Jersey in 2023. I was going to go to game 4 up there as opposed to going to game 5. And that was like a blessing that I didn't go to game 4 in New Jersey and I went to game 5 at home, because we all know what happened. Thank you, Jesper Fast. But when I looked at tickets in New Jersey, they were geo-restricted to that general area. I don't remember everything it listed, but I couldn't buy them from being in the Washington metro area. We're not the only ones who do that, but they try to constantly portray it like we do. So that cuck and the other cuck can both go fuck themselves. And if they have a problem with anything I said, I will, next time I try to buy tickets to go to a playoff game in another city, which won't be this year, but I'll just do it I'll try to buy some this year just to entertain them. And I guarantee it will say geo-restricted tickets for me trying to buy from the market that I would be in up to there. And honestly, I stopped in the airport in New Jersey one time, and that was when we were on the way back from seeing the Canes play in Florida after we got back from our cruise. And stopping at the airport in Newark was enough of New Jersey for me. I'm good. Now, if you're talking about going out into the country part of New Jersey, I would do that, because I've been to the country part of Connecticut and the country parts of Massachusetts. Those places are fucking awesome. One thing I'm going to do one day is go to Vermont and collect about 7 different types of maple syrup, because that shit is great. I've had people bring it to me, but I want to go get some myself. So, but yeah, we're not the only ones who geo-restrict tickets. So that guy's just drumming up for clicks, because a lot of those dudes, they've never actually had a real job. All they do is write articles and do podcasts all day. And people will say, well, Brandon, isn't that what you do? I'm like, yeah, I do it in my free time. I don't really make any money to do it. And I have a real job, or I had a real job, but damn. That would have been good for Svechnikov's confidence if he could have buried that. If he can get one to go, I mean, we've said this about Svechnikov before. If he can just get one to go in, the floodgates will open. But that poor kid's had a rough year. All right. Reese Bailey says Carrier got high stick that made him bleed. No call though, because of course refs are probably scared to call penalties because they're in the Bell Center. Yeah, that might have something to do with it. But he straight up missed that. Ali Yasmin said, "What are the chances Nikishin plays in the playoffs? If anybody is injured, I bet he's the first one in. If nobody gets injured, next to zero, unless somebody plays so bad that Rod actually benches them, and that would." It would get to the point where Burns started shooting. It would have to get to the point where Burns started shooting at his own net before Rod would pull him out to put Nikishin in. So, and I'm going to get used to pronouncing his name properly. I've been pronouncing it improperly because when I first started doing research on him and doing videos about him a couple of years ago, I didn't know what the actual pronunciation was. And I didn't know if we were supposed to pronounce it the same way as they did on the KHL broadcast. Reason being, for example, Alexander Semin, his name is pronounced completely different in Russian, and it's spelled different when it's on the back of a Russian sweater. I didn't know if that applied to Nikishin's name or not, so please forgive my error. I didn't know any better in regards to the pronunciation of the name, but it's kind of like that. So I don't think he's going to come in unless somebody gets injured or plays really bad. That being said, there is a near 0% chance that you would get through the playoffs, especially if you manage to get to the conference finals again, that you will get through the playoffs without at least one defenseman getting injured at some point. The biggest reason I was hoping Nikishin would play in at least one of these games in Canada here is to maybe make the coaching staff have to consider putting him in. That was the one thing I was really hoping for. All right, that's the end of that period. All right. All Canes Network, are you talking about that one Devils reporter? Yeah. Now, let me make it abundantly clear. It is not Devil's Joint, and it is not Neil Villapiano. Those guys are cool. They're fine. It was some other, and then there was another one that said this thing that totally, completely, no proof of it whatsoever. But, when it comes to, let me put it this way. When it comes to journalists, the First Amendment is a weapon and a suicide pact. And sports journalists are really, really good at using it as a weapon. But essentially, there was another thing that said this guy, he contradicted himself within a couple of posts. He said something about Eric Holland not getting the time off he needed from the team, but also claimed that Rod wasn't giving him the ice time he deserved when he played in Carolina. And I'm like, okay, both of those things cannot be true at once after what unfortunately happened to him and his wife. And he was claiming up and down that Canes fans were making fun of that happening, and that was totally not true. I remember that situation very, very specifically because I went to the game before the tragedy that happened was announced. And when he scored that night, because he scored, I want to say it was Carolina's first goal that night, he pointed up at the sky and none of us knew why. And then what happened came out later. This was back when I was still on Reddit all the time, and that's where I first saw it. So it's like, here, let me mute this over here since nothing important is being said at the moment. It's all commercials. But none of that ever happened that has ever been proven by anybody. But this dude just randomly brought it up one day. And that's why I'm kind of like, I don't believe a word that this fucking loser is saying. So, but that's what he has to do to get clicks. Like I said, probably never had a real job. If he had to do something other than write bullshit clickbait articles, he would probably starve. Dan something. Yeah, I don't remember what those two are. Like when I saw the shit that both of them wrote, I muted both of them because I'm like, I'm not dealing with this bullshit on my timeline. I have to mute enough stupid shit as it is. Like, I just wasn't going to deal with it. All Canes Network says you should try going to an Oiler versus Kings game to screw with them. Nah, I'm good. Nah, I'll set that one out. The only reason I would support the Kings is because of Warren Fogle, because that's my boy and everything. Aircraft says, would you be more likely to move Kochekov or Svechnikov if you were the GM? Well, that is a somewhat complex question. Let me go back to the full screen here. That is somewhat of a complex question. As it stands right now, if I had to guess, unless they trade for John Gibson or maybe Jeremy Swayman, maybe, and that's a hell of a maybe on the Swayman aspect of things, I would be willing to bet that we have the same tandem come back next season. Because the goaltending market there's two types of goaltending markets, bad and worse. And we are in the era of worse. The goaltending market really, really sucks right now. So if you're going to go out and potentially get a goalie, this would be a good time to do it. John Gibson only has 2 more years on his contract. Swayman is extended long-term. A lot of people are kind of worried about what would you do with Swayman and everything like that. They point out that he has a sub 900 save percentage. He's not been that good. The team in front of him absolutely fucking sucks defensively. And they're not good at preventing goals. They're not good at suppressing shots for him. And it's kind of the same thing with the Ducks as far as John Gibson goes. I would be willing to move Kochetkov if you're bringing back someone like Swayman. That being said, Swayman would be a pretty big gamble. Like, for example, if John Gibson's a mistake, you don't have to live with it for very long. Swayman, if you trade for someone like him, you are making a very, very big commitment. So what I would rather do is, see, it's a double-edged sword at that point. You know the tandem that you have works to a great degree, but can they get you to the promised land at the end of the season? Probably not. But if you go out and you acquire someone like Swayman, who I think is a great goalie, and one of the reasons that I think he's a great goalie is because I don't know goalies that well, so I consult with people who do. My aforementioned friend Steve, him and I have played together. He is a goalie, and he played ACHA college hockey. So when I need to talk to somebody about goalies, he's one of the people I go to. And he said that Swayman would be basically franchise altering for us if we were to go get someone like him. And I take his word for it. He knows goalies very, very well. So at that point, you would still have to find a backup. And as much as Carolina prioritizes shot suppression and defense and, winning these close games and everything like that, I would rather have a really strong tandem. So I personally would not give Kochetkov up unless you're getting a really big upgrade, because then you have to go get a backup. If you hold on to Kochetkov and acquire a goalie through other means, then you could potentially have a Gibson-Kochetkov tandem or a Swayman-Kochetkov tandem. So that leads me into the next part of your question. Would it be him or Svechnikov? At this point right now, and I hate to say this because I really like Andrei Svechnikov, the needs of the team right now would tip in the favor of Kochetkov staying here in that situation, regardless of what you do for another goalie. If I had to make a choice between those two, I'd rather trade Svechnikov. I hate to do that, but it's like there's plenty of people potentially in the system and potentially in free agency and potentially on the trade block who could come in and replace some of what Svechnikov brings to the table. You could potentially go out and get someone like Mitch Marner, Nikolai Ehlers, Brock Besser to replace what scoring you would lose if you were to move Svechnikov. The goalie market is not that forgiving. So at this point, I would keep Kochetkov if I were put in that situation. And if I had to trade one of them, it would be Svechnikov. Now, if you do trade Svechnikov, get someone back with size, get someone back with capability of scoring, specifically get somebody who is really, really good at playing a speed game and put them on the left wing, and someone who would fit good with Aho and Jarvis, because they've not really had someone who really, really staples and stays there since Gensel. So if you're going out to get a player for that specific purpose, then yes, go ahead and move Svechnikov if that's what it takes. However, I don't think we'd have to move anybody from this roster with all the abundance of picks and prospects we have. If we want to actually go get somebody, we may not have to give up a roster player at all. So Frankie's over there making his little foxhole. Ali Yasmin asks, how many games do you think the first round will go to? I think Carolina will win in 6 games. And like I said before, a lot of people think that we're just going to walk in there and beat the shit out of the Devils. That's not going to happen. And a lot of people cite, well, they don't have Jack Hughes. And like I've said before, I don't think Jack Hughes is their best player. I think he's their 3rd best forward. I legitimately believe that. Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt are much more well-rounded, much more complete players than Jack Hughes. And like I said, Jack Hughes is valuable in 2/3 of the ice. And even with as much as he's improved defensively, he's still a disaster in his own zone. I won't say a disaster, but he's not as good. He used to be a disaster in his own zone. He's not as good as he was. But honestly, like that, I am more. It is more beneficial to the Canes for Jonas Siegenthaler to be out than Jack Hughes. I'm dead serious. He's their third best player. A lot of people see someone who skates as well as he does, handles the puck as well as he does the entries that he does very well, and all that crazy shit he can do in the offensive zone, all those crazy plays that he can make on transition with distributing the puck. And they're like, oh, well, Jack Hughes is a great player. He puts up all these points. That's true. But when you start picking out little things about his game, there's a lot of shit he's actually not good at on the defensive side of things. So in that regard, he's kind of an incomplete player. Nico Hischier, on the other hand, is the Swiss version of Sebastian Aho that wears all CCM gear. He's almost, if I had to pick a player who is a 1-for-1 replication of Aho in this league, it's Nico Hischier. Close second being Rupe Hintz. So I just wouldn't, I'm not going to take New Jersey lightly. I'm really not. I don't care, Jack Hughes or no Jack Hughes. And like I said, if they had lost Hischier instead, I would take them a little bit more lightly. If they'd lost Bratt instead, I would have taken them more likely. But Jack Hughes being out of the lineup is not going to affect that team's ability to beat a team like Carolina as much as people think it will. It just won't. Ali Yasmin says, I'm kind of scared of Markstrom. Markstrom has proven that he's still a solid goalie and everything like that. I wouldn't say I'm scared of him. If he is better than Anderson, it's not by much. Numbers-wise, Anderson's still better, but he has also not played nearly as much. So we'll see as, time goes on with that and everything. I would wager to say that Freddie's still a little bit better in that regard. And when I do the playoff forecast, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But looking at the numbers of the two, I think Freddie's got a little bit more of an advantage. And then when you start factoring in which team defends better, Carolina, that advantage becomes greater for them. Aaliyah also says, God, I would love Swayman. Yeah, like I said, it's one of those things that I would have to really, really think about. But it's a commitment if you go and get someone like Swayman. Like I said, if John Gibson doesn't work out, you only have to live with it for 2 years. Or you can just buy him out and then you don't have to live with it at all except for the dead cap. So that's another thing to consider with that. Dylan Bollinger says Freddie needs to go instead. He can't stay healthy. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's like if you go and you get someone like Freddie Anderson, or I'm sorry, if you go out and get somebody to be the 1A or the 1B to Kochekov, or however you want to look at it, that's a different story. Freddie's health is the only thing that's a concern because it's a matter of staying healthy with Freddie. It's not because he sucks, because he does not. He's very good. It's just his inconsistencies pop up when his injuries start to bother him again. And that is the big risk with bringing Freddie back. The one thing about that is, though, you could bring him back for cheap and use that cap space to improve the team in other locations. So if we can improve from Freddie, we should. But the problem with it is, like I said before, the goalie market is incredibly dry. It's either bad or it's worse, and right now it's worse. That's the only two ways that there's a goalie market. I can't remember a time in my life. I've been watching hockey since I was 6 years old. I cannot remember a time in my life where there's been a legitimately good goalie market, like where 2 or 3 big name ones were signed in free agency, or a bunch of them were traded at one time. I'm not talking about backups. I'm talking about like big name, like starters. So that's the only problem. Oh, wait, let me go back here. Matthew Brown says Nikishin is going to be Nikishin is going to be a real game changer when he gets here. I wish he was playing tonight, but my God, he is going to be a mega star in North Carolina. Yeah, he is. I can't wait. And I've already got the sweater on the way, but I had it delivered to my dad. So that way, because we're getting ready to move, so I didn't want to take the chance of leaving and it not being here yet. So I'm getting it delivered to my dad. And then once I have it, I'll take a picture with that and the numerous other sweaters I have that have number 21 on it, because that's all I was waiting on, was to confirm that he was going to wear that number. I was like, yep, I know exactly what the fuck I want. Ali Yasmin says, Freddie constantly getting injured drives me nuts. Yeah. OMG, I would do literally anything to get Nico Hischier on the Canes. He would be perfect here. Him or Hintz, either one. When they were trading Rantanen to Dallas, I was hoping that there was some degree of hope. I was like, please tell me we're getting Roope Hintz back, or we're getting Wyatt Johnston coming back. That was the two. I was really hoping for Wyatt Johnston, but either one of those would be great. All Canes Network, what would a package for Swayman look like? Possibly futures only, and we've got so many of them from the Rantanen trade. You might not have to give up a roster player to make that happen. Maybe they take those 2 firsts that we got from Dallas. Maybe they take a prospect. I could see Carolina potentially saying, hey, here's these 2 first-round picks that we got from Dallas, and then that being the main piece from Carolina's side, main piece from Boston's side being Swayman, and then over the course of time, they tailor it a little bit more, add some stuff in on both sides, and then eventually make it a worthwhile hockey trade, because the 2 first-rounders for Swayman may get a conversation started, but that will not get a deal done, in my opinion. That's just speculation on my part. I have nothing to back that up. I'm just saying, if someone is asking for the goalie I just signed for 8 years, they need to offer me something good, and that's going to be the case with Boston. That being said, they're not going to be competitive again for a while, so they need future assets. If they go into this offseason and try to mortgage more of their future and make the team good again now, they are going to pay for it. They are going to pay for it dearly. So they need to think about shipping Elias Lindholm off and, whoever else they can get out of there and get futures. They really should. I just don't see them being competitive again. And they've been putting this off for a long time, because they ended up being a paper tiger back in 22-23, and they've been trying to hold on to that ever since. And it's time for them to hit the button and rebuild. It really is. If they try and prolong this, they're looking at ending up in a situation like Carolina was in for 9 years of not making the playoffs. See how long we got until, okay, we're still on first intermission. Okay, cool. One of y'all in the chat, let me know when the game starts again, because I don't have it on the split screen right now to see. Dylan Bollinger says Swayman not be good this year. I really want Sorokin. I'd rather have Swayman than Sorokin. The thing about it is, yeah, Swayman's not been good this year, but consider this. He didn't go to camp because he had the contract holdout, and then he went to play for a team that can't defend worth a damn, and he still came out with an .892 save percentage. A lot of other goalies wouldn't even do that. He was at least close to 900. So I would have to look at the numbers more between the two of them to really, really draw a comparison. Sorokin would not be bad, but you could potentially get either one of those guys. Actually, I'm going to take a look at something on Puckpedia real quick, because I have an idea of what Swayman's contract is like, because that was 8.25 by 8. I don't know what Sorokin's contract looks like off the top of my head. I will tell you in a moment, though. Shit, that's right. He's in year 1 of 8, 8.25 cap hit as well. Fuck, okay. Sorry. So, if you get either one of those guys, you don't have to account for any type of variable there. Swayman says Nikishin, Aho, Jarvis, Fitzgerald is going to be all over the place next season at Lenovo. Yeah, they will. They're already selling a shirt. Yeah, if you go on the Canes X page, scroll down for a little while, you'll find it where they're selling it. I already had one in my cart, and when they announced it, I'm like, I pulled the trigger on that shit immediately. Aaliyah asked, do you think Jarvis has overtaken Aho as the best player? I think they're pretty close now. That is a hard thing for me to say, because everyone knows how big of an Aho fan I am. That being said, having players on the team better than Aho only makes us better. It's hard to say. At one point, I would say, a lot of people may just say, well, Jarvis puts up more points, he's better offensively, but Jarvis's overall 200-foot game is fucking unreal. That's one of the reasons why I said, I'm like, hey, he was drafted as a center. I know he's not that big, but we already took one guy who, was playing wing before and turned him into a center with Aho. Tried to do it with Natchez. It didn't work out. I have my thoughts on that I've expressed on multiple occasions about why it ultimately didn't. But then he goes to Colorado and he proves me completely wrong. So I'm just going to shut the fuck up. Rod was right about Natchez not being a center. I thought he was wrong about that, but Natchez is just, I don't think he's an NHL center. He might work on some stuff in the offseason and be able to do it, but I was really, really under the impression of like, wow, this guy is actually like kind of, I thought maybe they were developing him a little bit incorrectly, but it actually turns out Nate just didn't have those aspects of the game that I personally thought he had. At this point, I would have to say those guys are both really, really complete players. I say Aho still has a little bit of an edge defensively from the eye test, but the numbers say that Jarvis is better defensively. At this point, I think it's suffice to say that Seth Jarvis, if he is not the best player on this team right now, he will be. And he will be within a season or two. But that does nothing but help us. When you get players to come in better than Aho, because Aho was the ceiling for a long time, but if you're bringing in players better than him, or if you're developing players better than him like you are in Jarvis, I ain't upset about anything. And I can tell you right now, Sebastian Aho ain't upset about it neither. Matthew Brown says, when his rookie deal is over, what do you think Nikishin's future contract looks like? I'm hoping for a long-term lockup. Yes, he will be locked up long-term, and I would not be surprised if... So here's the thing. So Nikishin's got a unique contract situation. He does not have... Okay, game started again. Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's see what we got going on over here. Honestly, I'm really impressed this AHL team is holding 1-1 when Montreal put all their regulars out there, but they had to, considering the circumstances they're in the standings. I love watching Sean Walker skate, man. He is such a good skater. Since Natchez has been gone, he's the best skater on the team now. KK did a good job covering up there so Walker could jump into the offensive zone. I know that's one of the things that people talk about. They were disappointed with Kokoniemi was the defensive side of his game. I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people say it is. One day I'm going to make a video about why I think there is such a bias against defense in hockey. And I think a lot of it has to do with, like, I know people joke about, oh, watch the games. I think that actually has a lot to do with it, because I know that there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I don't have time to watch the game. Like, especially when I was in the military, you know, there were times where I'm like, I got to be up at 4 or 5 in the morning, whatever the fuck I'm doing. I didn't have time to sit down and watch a game that started on the West Coast at 10 o'clock, or a lot of times a game that started at 7 o'clock on the East Coast. Next morning, I just kind of had to watch the highlights. And when you watch highlights or condensed games or everything like that, you don't see all the good defensive plays that a particular player will make, but you'll see when they get burned. You might not see all the big saves a goalie makes, but you'll see when he gets scored on. So I think that's why, a lot of people look at someone like Gostisbehere or someone like that who makes multiple good defensive plays again. I like that extra little bit of patience from Hall there. It's a good little playmaking effort there by Svechnikov and Kokoniemi. And you can tell even the regulars here are holding back a little bit, because KK would have ran Lane Hudson through the boards right there normally, or not Lane Hudson, whoever that is. I was going to say that was too tall to be Lane Hudson. See, this is good right here. Svechnikov has that extra little bit of patience before he throws that sauce. That was a good play by Skylar Brindamore for that drop pass there to William Carrier. Like I said, he's not a bad player. I just don't see him being like a mainstay on, a really deep team. It's not like he's done developing yet. He's still playing in the American League, but it's just like I just don't see him overtaking so many people ahead of him, whether Suzuki stays or not. There you go, Kochekov being able to see through that traffic there and staying calm with it. It's little things like that he's got to keep doing better. Sam Montembeau made a hell of a save right there. That was Bradley Nadeau he made that save on too, and we all know that kid can shoot. He couldn't settle that puck down as fast as he wanted to get that shot off, but that kid has a hell of a wrist shot, and snapshot's really good too. See, like Roslovic's he's a really good forechecker. He's got some wheels. He's good at using his body to protect the puck, especially when he's along the boards and below the goal line. It's just he gets lost coming back a lot of times, and he just kind of doesn't pick up the right man on the back check and everything like that because he's got plenty of damn speed. Taylor Hall's really carrying this team right now. I mean, they're not playing bad by any means, but Taylor Hall's like trying to really will them into this game. All right, so we got a stoppage here. Game starting again. Thank you guys. I appreciate it so much. I didn't get the chance to say thank you for letting me know it was starting again. They talked about Nikishin. I hadn't turned the volume back on before that. Lee Yasmin says, not the biggest fan, but God Orlov has a good shot. Yeah, when he doesn't hit people in the shin pads. He's just the velocity on it's great. He's just not been getting it through. And I kind of felt like he's always been that way here. Step up on him, Burnsy. There you go, Svetch. Good entry. That's out, dude. That's out. Don't even try and do anything with that. Just dump it back in. Pop's standing there with the puck. He's like, oh, no, what the fuck do I do with this? I don't think he knew that was going to wind up on his stick like that. Logan Stankoven is a fucking animal, dude. Oh, shit. That's going to be a penalty. That was clean out. He tried to rim it off the glass, and he accidentally put it over, but that was clean out. That's a penalty. All Canes Network says SBA could be a good AHL center that could come up due to injuries. Yeah, like as far as being a depth piece, yeah, he's totally him being a call up and like situations like this, for example. Yeah, totally. He's not going to be better than Mark Jankowski or Jesperi Kotkaniemi or anyone like that as far as like a center you could have at the NHL level. I wish him all the best though. I really do. Aaliyah Yasmin says, "Damn, Nadeau looks good." Yeah, I agree. And Unk clears it out. All righty. Yeah, you can tell even the penalty kill's out of sync because it doesn't have its normal guys out there, or at least all of them anyway. There you go, Dima. Way to drop the knee there. Take away that passing lane. Not bad. Not bad at all there. Good sequence, boys. All Canes Network says Taylor Hall has beef against Montreal, it looks like. Yeah, maybe he does. I know KK does. That's why I'm hoping for a really big game out of him. BTS says I've been silently listening, but I must speak up for my boy Orly. Yeah, like I said, I'm just not impressed, especially with $7.75 million. If he does by chance come back, he cannot get paid that again. He's no, not worth that. Like maybe half of that. Like I just 4 million at the most, at the absolute most, but I'd rather not even pay him that. But if they bring him back to help Nikishin get acclimated, I understand why. That was a good save there. Nate, what's up, dude? Let's freaking go. Kane's so pumped up for playoff hockey. Yeah, me too. I'm probably going to not get to really sit down and watch game 2 or 3 in the first round because I'm just going to be busy doing other stuff. Because when I get down there, I might do a watch party tomorrow night, depending on how much I get done during the day. I'm going to do one stream on Friday night, which is going to be the player grades for the end of the season, which I have to finish filling out the slides for. Oh, man, Coach Chekhov got really lucky there. And I'm going to do the playoff forecast on Saturday, and then you guys ain't going to see me for a couple of weeks at least. I'll still be posting on X and everything like that, but for the most part, I'm not going to have time to do any of this stuff. I'm going to get down there, and I want to get my home set up, and then I'm going to chill for a little bit. I've never got to take my dog to the beach, and I've always wanted to take him, and now I'm finally going to get to do that. And then, I can go without working for a little while, but if I do it for too long, I'm gonna start to go crazy. So Reese Bailey says Kochetkov is consistently the most inconsistent player on the ice. You'll see him make some really good saves and plays with the puck, and then the exact opposite. Yeah, that's what I've always said about him. It's like he has these moments where he's like, okay, he's super controlled, or in his own words, stay in fucking net, do fucking job. There's times where he does that amazingly well. And then there's other moments where he just totally fucks up, and I'm like, how did you end up being an NHL goaltender? And that's what separates him, I think, from being a 1B or a starter or a potential starter or a 1A is those inconsistencies like that, because he can win games and win them often. We've seen it before. But it's also like when he gets in his own head, it's pretty scary to watch, as we saw in the last stretch of games he played in prior to the last one he won, because he did pretty damn good in that game, in my opinion. So Aaliyah says, can't wait for Taylor Hall to play against his former team in the playoffs. I agree. That's going to be fun to watch. Dylan Bollinger says, other than that, PK has been smart. Yeah, for the most part, but it's like those little inconsistencies like that as a goalie. It's the thing with being a goalie. You either get blamed, and you see this in regards to Kochetkov is a very, very good example of this when you go through and you'll see somebody say something about something, and then there's various different opinions on it. Goalies either get praised too much or they get blamed for everything, and there's not much of an in between. It's like people are either like, he should never have to buy his drinks in Raleigh again, or they're rolling out the guillotine. There's like no fucking in between when it comes to goalies. Nate says, how about your top 3 games of the season for a recap on the morning take? Not sure if you have done that yet. No, I actually haven't done that yet. I think I'll save that for after the playoffs, once I'm settled in down there and everything, because as soon as I'm done with the playoff forecast, which may end up just being a pre-recorded video instead of a live stream, then as soon as that's done, everything on these walls over here is coming down, because that's the last thing that I have to do. So almost everything else is done. Like this desk, I already got a new one, so it's not coming with me. So I'm just going to take an axe to it and throw it out the fucking window because it's not going to survive another trip anyway. And the one that I have is significantly better. So I'm looking forward to that. And, you know, I'm going to get some shelves mounted up and everything like that so I can put all my model aircraft and numerous other things on it that I have. Next TV timeout, I'm going to have to step away for a second, get some more water. Damn it, KK. For a team that shoots as much as we do, we get a lot of shots blocked in situations that we shouldn't. Because when it comes to volume shooting, Carolina is it. That's going to be icing. Aaliyah says Stankoven is such a dog. Yeah, he is. He reminds me, he's like got a lot of Seth Jarvis in his game, but like, which is funny because they played together before in juniors. But it's not just like he's like Seth Jarvis, but he has a little bit more edge to his game. Like my friend Jeremy was saying, it's like he kind of reminded him of Brad Marchand, not like the after the whistle chirping bullshit, but like the, you know, just the way he skates and the way that he like goes in corners really hard and everything like that. He's got a lot of that to his game, that just aggravating, tenacious speed game. He's definitely got that. So yeah, Hall had two guys on him there. He wasn't going to walk that through the middle of the ice like he wanted to. Get back. Get back. And Taylor Hall just straight up got tripped up and not a fucking thing. Wait, hold up. Whistle's blowing. Okay. Did they get it? Okay, Kochekov was coming out of the net, so they finally got that. Well, that was fucking ridiculous. How do you miss that one? Oh, Jesus. Thank you, crossbar. It went off of his glove and then went off the crossbar. Dylan Bollinger says PK is still young. Yeah, I agree with that, but it's like he's also had plenty of time to like show what his trajectory is going to be. And every time it looks like he's trending up, something bad happens. Like that mistake he made in Columbus where he got that concussion. NHL goaltenders cannot do shit like that. I'm sorry, they just can't. Like that was a big mistake on his part, and it almost cost him, or it did cost him a few games. But let's see what we got going here with this power play. So Jost, Svechnikov, Roslovic, Gostisbehere, and Stankoven. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Tyson Jost looks so lost like right now. He's like, what the fuck is a power play? I think he was trying to get Montembeault to bite, and then he was going to try and go for that cross-ice pass, Stankoven there. And if he couldn't get him to do that, then he was going to try and pick the corner, and it rolled on him. Ali asked, do you think Coach E has the potential to be our starter with more experience? Potential, yes, but that is that window is getting narrow. I remember on multiple things I've done on here and on Caniac sessions both, I'm like, if we're going to see what we have with Kochekov, this has to be the season that we have to figure out. Like, we have to have a near definitive determination of what his ceiling is. Damn it. KK just lives snake bit, man. This was the season to kind of see what his get a more of an idea of what his ceiling was, how much more that there really was that you could wait on him and everything like that. That window's narrowing really quick though, and I like Kochekov. I really do. I like everybody on this team. The last player that was on this team that I just outright did not like was Dylan Coghlan. And I'll go into that another time, but I fucking hated him. Like, not as a person, but I hated seeing him wear a Hurricane sweater. I was like, please trade this guy. I don't want him here. But it's I think he's worth holding on to, even if you go get another goalie. I just don't think he's someone that you can go in there and expect to start 50 games and win the majority of them, for example, which is about what you would need from a starting goalie. There's Nadeau with that crazy shot again, dude. Like that actually, he was trying to get it to him, man. Come on. I want to see Nadeau shoot the puck. Just get selfish and shoot it, kid. This unit's been out there the whole time, I think. Or no, this is a different one. Shoot that. That kid picked his corner out, too. I knew where he was going. He was trying to go over the shoulder, and he just about had it. Let's watch this replay here because kid had his spot picked. I bet his shot was the one that was what caused Montembeau's mask to get undone there. Yeah. Dude. An inch to the left, and that puck's in the net. That kid, his shot is really damn good. Dylan says also here lately we've been breaking down in front of him a lot also. Yeah, but at the same time, I know that the LA game in particular, those breakdowns were completely unexcusable. Most of them were. At the same time, though, at some point or another, you need to get a save from your goaltender, and he got so rattled from that game. And that's one of the other things that, I talk about with the inconsistencies that he has. You got to be able to have a game like that and have a short memory and come back out and not let it affect you again. And I feel like that game affected his next three to some degree or another. Granted, it was a gradual improvement from there, but that should have been one of those games where he's just kind of like, all right, I need to get my shit together, because it starts to become reciprocal at that point when you have a game like that. And the players in front of you also need to have a short memory and get their stuff together too. So I'm not entirely putting this on Kochetkov, but what you have to do at that particular point is, or what you have to do at that particular point is get your stuff together, and the guys in front of you get your stuff together, because if either of those things fail, whether it's the goalie or the defense or whatever is causing you to get scored on at that point, it becomes reciprocal. And it's like guys in front of you start feeling less confident about the goalie behind them. The goalie behind them starts feeling less confident about the guys in front of them. And that's where I think Kochetkov is a little bit of a weak link at times, is putting stretches of games like that behind him and moving forward, because he was clearly rattled a little bit during that time frame. And, it looks like he's come out of it now. So it's Scott Morrow's got such a great pass. They're showing that Jankowski goal that he got that assist on, but that's the only thing about it. It's like that lack of consistency is what I think keeps Kochetkov from taking that next step. I really do. Nate says, makes sense. Looking forward to it. Appreciate all of your content. And I appreciate you guys being here with me tonight. Thank you so much. I really enjoy doing this stuff. Like I said, if I can ever make enough money off of it to like make a truck payment or build a new computer, I'll be happy. But I've gotten to where I just enjoy it for what it is. And, it's like another thing this helped me out with is like I play hockey too, but I had to take a break because it's my own stupid ass fault. I had a couple of injuries. I knew I had them, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm 28, 29, whatever I was at the time. I'm like, I'll be fine. I'm going to live forever. I'm 20. Walk up to me and shoot me. Nothing will happen. It'll just bounce off like Superman. That's what I thought. Then I turned 30, and I'm like, okay, this hurts a little bit. And then I turned 31, and I'm like, oh, shit, this really hurts. Then I turned 32, and I'm like, skating is getting fucking hard. And then I didn't want to go to the gym. And then I was tired all the time. And I'm like, why is life like this? And then I realized I'm like, this is something I probably should have started taking care of a couple of years ago, and I wouldn't have spent so much time in physical therapy for it. But it's like now it's like I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty well past it. I've still got to do maintenance on it and everything. And what I do off the ice is more important than on. But it was around the time that I took a break from playing the first time, which was also for other reasons, that I started doing this stuff. And I'm gotten to where I wanted to stay reconnected to the game. And I was like, I'll do this for a little while and see how it works out. And it's actually worked out pretty well. But that's been thanks to you guys. Like, you make this stuff enjoyable. You really do. As much as I enjoy arguing with idiots who think that Jalen Chatfield is not good at defense, I prefer talking to people like you guys much, much more. Let's see what else we got here. BTS says moving sucks. I'm hoping you're almost done with everything. It does suck, but at the same time, it's like I'm really happy about where we're going. Good block. I'm really happy about where we're going. And it's given me a lot of energy because I was really just kind of tired of what I was doing for work and everything. And I was ready to move on, live somewhere else, do something else, because I was not supposed to be up here this long. I came up here in 2017. And the only reason I didn't leave in 2020 was because, so I was actually going to go back to Fayetteville because of how bad shit was in early 2020 up here, because I was like, this fucking sucks. But I had nowhere to put my big dog because my grandparents nor my dad had any way that we could really accommodate him. So I was just kind of stuck. And I was like, well, I'm not giving up my dog. That's not going to happen. And, it's like I've always told people, if I only have one meal left, Frank will get half of it, if not all of it, because he's my boy and everything. So I stayed up here for longer than I wanted to. Then me and my girlfriend started dating. And then one of the things that we established early on, she's like, do you want to stay here? I'm like, hell no. I do not want to stay here. It's too fucking expensive. The traffic sucks. And a lot of the people suck. I've made some great friends up here, but I would wager to say, like, I have never just not wanted to be social so much in my life as I have up here. And good save. So what her and I are, like, and her, I'm going to have her on the stream with me one day to talk about it one day. We were going to go to Tucson, Arizona. That didn't work out. Then we looked at going to Huntsville, Alabama. We actually traveled down there and visited it. We were like, this fucking sucks. So we came back up here for another year. And then we decided on to go visit Charleston over 4th of July. And I'd been there before, but not as an adult. I was young. I was like 20 the first time I went there when I was in the Navy. I went there for a concert that ended up not happening. And I really liked it there, but I hadn't been back there in a long time. I had a relatively crazy ex-girlfriend who had an even crazier boyfriend. That's a different story in of itself. Who I had heard was living there. I made sure that she was not. And we decided that we were going to go there after we went there for 4th of July, and we really liked it. So that's why we're heading there. So I'm really excited about it. So I've had a ton of energy moving. I've been going around and doing all kinds of stuff. Like, I'm pretty much completely packed, and I got it done in a couple of days. So I'll get to this one in a minute, BTS. I'm going to just watch the game here for a little bit, done rambling about stupid shit. See, that's just a smart little play right there. A lot of players in that situation that Taylor Hall was just in would just chip it off the boards and try and go get it or hope somebody else goes and gets it. But he snowplowed. He took that extra second, took that extra look, and Carolina maintained possession of it a little bit longer because of that, instead of him just chipping it off the boards, because that's not always the right play. So that was smart on his part. That's why you need a veteran presence like him, those little things like that. There you go. Team defense right there. Good zone defense. Sean Walker's almost as good at leaving his feet at the right time as Gostisbehere is at this point. It's Yeah, see, if you guys get that forecheck going, they can't do all those quick zone exits and everything. And those guys that they have on the blue line that are speedy, like Lane Hudson, can't do what then, the type of stuff they want to do. Montreal's definitely got some wheels on this team. I will say that. Caulfield being another one of those guys that's got some speed. We also have 2 Carriers on the ice tonight. We like the one named William more, though. Shit. Oh, my God. Don't get rattled, Cooch. This is what I'm talking about. Don't get rattled. Just have a short memory. Put it behind you. All right, let's see what happened here. Burns picked up Caulfield there in the slot because he thought that Suzuki was going to try and pass it. I'm still not upset with the way the Canes are playing, though, considering the circumstances. Look at something here real quick. All right, now we're going to the TV timeout here. So I actually really want to talk about this particular comment right here. BTS says, I saw something that says Stank is like Caulfield, and I didn't realize how much I agree with that until Stank's first couple of games here. I personally don't see a ton of similarities between those. Stankoven is a lot more physical, and they both play a speed-based game. With Caulfield, it's more about possession and shooting the puck. With Stankoven, it's more about puck pursuit and dropping the shoulder and going into the corners, digging pucks out and taking it to the front of the net and getting an opportunity of some sort, whether it's on a clean look or he tries to stuff it in. Caulfield, I think, is more of a score off the rush type of player. Stankoven is more of a grinder in that regard. I'm not saying that he's a one-dimensional grinder by any means, because he's not, but I personally don't see a lot of similarities in their game. That's just me, though, and that being said, I've not watched either one of them play a ton yet, so maybe I'll feel differently about that, but on surface level, I personally don't see it that way. All Canes Network says Orlov Burns is an actual nightmare. Having them on the same team this last season has kind of been a nightmare. Having them on the same line is, Jesus. Reese Bailey says Fensori's skating is special, man. He can cut on a dime so effortlessly, super impressive. Yeah, and if you're going to play defense at all, whether you're a shutdown guy or a puck mover or a two-way defenseman like Sean Walker is or anything like that now, you can not be the greatest skater and get away with being a forward defenseman nowadays. You have to be a pretty damn good skater in this day and age. So, yes, his skating is really good. That whatever holds Fensori back, if anything ends up holding Fensori back, it will not be his skating. It definitely will not be that. And he looks like he's got a pretty good pretty good mind for the defensive side of the game and everything like that, based on a couple of the plays he's already made in this game. So, because I don't get to sit down and watch the Chicago Wolves very much, so because normally when I would be watching them, I'm either watching the Canes or I'm watching the Marksmen. So, and then baseball started again now, and I watched the Braves get fucking just absolutely screwed over today, but that's a different discussion. That umpire strike zone was like fucking out here. It's ridiculous. Nadeau on PP2. Nadeau is insane. Yeah, I agree. Aaliyah, I'll get to this one in a minute here. At the intermission, I'll get to more of these. Get back. Good stick by Fensori. He's a little scrappy. Fensori is. I like it. There you go. There's another one of those little things that Taylor Hall does well, just holding on or just waiting for a second there before digging that puck out and then making a really smart zone exit with it. A lot of times it's those really subtle plays that get overlooked that make a player really good, and Taylor Hall is one of those guys. He just does all the little things well. But yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about with Caulfield BTS, the way that he's like going to generate offense off the rush here. Stankoven, I think his game leans a little bit more to the really vicious 200-foot type of game. Caulfield's a little bit more of a skill guy in that regard. Just from what I've seen. Get their ghost. It's just Slavkovsky. It's just the next Jaromir Jagr, allegedly. Shit. Let's see what happened here. He was screened in so many ways there. Slavkovsky and Brandamore were both screening Kochekov there. Great skating there by Stankoven. Great puck handling, too. Ah. Good back check there by Stankoven. Alrighty. That's the end of that period. Like I said, I'm not upset with the way the Canes are playing at all, really. Circumstances considered. All right. Aaliyah Yasmin, do you think Nadeau comes up next season? As it stands right now, yes. Especially considering I don't so I'm like basically like 100% convinced that Roslovic's not coming back. So that would make room for Nadeau to come in. And Felix Ungersorm, I don't think is going to be ready. I know that it looked like he was getting there at camp, but he's had a little bit of trouble producing at the American Hockey League level, so he's probably a couple of seasons out. We are going to need some production of some sort. Depending on free agency, if you go get someone like Nikolai Ehlers, I don't think that would affect Nadeau getting called up. If you go get someone like Mitch Marner, it potentially could, considering what those guys are expected to provide. So that's the only thing with that. Dylan says, I hope so, Aaliyah. Aaliyah says, damn, I literally woke up at 4 a.m. for that damn LA game. I was so mad. Yeah, I was kind of upset with myself that I stayed awake that night to watch it, but I was like, I'm getting close to quitting my job in a couple of weeks, so I wasn't really worried about anything like that then. Colby, what's up, bro? I, for one, am having a blast during this game. Fensori skating, Nadeau shot. This is about to get funny for Habs fans. Yeah, I agree. User 923 says, Chatfield will answer to Wilton. I think they kind of already put that to bed. Matt, is that you? Not no. Duhaime and him fought at the last game, and I think that Duhaime and Chatfield. That is, I think that's kind of the end of that whole thing. I would hope so, because that was a pretty fair, match, and Chatfield took his licks. He got a couple little punches in there here and there, but Chatfield's not a fighter. And that's part of the reason that whole situation with him and Connor McMichael ended up the way it did, because you have two guys who don't fight that ended up in a situation like that, and then that's just how it wound up. But it was just a takedown that happens a lot of times. That one did look bad. I understand it. If Chatfield had a history of doing stuff like that, I would understand the outrage. But it's not like an experienced fighter like Kotkaniemi did that. Not that Connor McMichael would go up to Kotkaniemi and try to start anything anyway, but Connor McMichael put himself in that situation by following Chatfield all the way back through the neutral zone, horse collaring, probably pulled his hair, which is probably what really set him off, even though Chatfield had made it abundantly clear multiple times that he did not want to fight, that he wanted nothing to do with it. And then that situation boiled over. I'm glad that McMichael didn't get hurt, but if he wants to blame anybody for that particular situation, it's on him. Chatfield made it abundantly clear he didn't want to go. And Connor McMichael continued to follow him all the way through the neutral zone and start it. And a lot of people who were upset about this, they're like, oh, that's just hockey. That's just hockey. That's just hockey. Until something happened to Connor McMichael they didn't like, and then all of a sudden it's dirty and Jalen Chatfield needs to be in Leavenworth. And that's bullshit. That's not the way that should have been looked at. It got answered for. That's the end of it. Or it should be anyway. Reese Bailey says, and I may get a heart attack if we have to see Kochetkov in playoff games. This dude cannot be trusted. User 923 says both goalies can't be trusted. I wouldn't say both. Freddie's been pretty solid. Dylan Bollinger, Dom had looked great. Yeah, I agree. It has looked great, yes. A team playing for their life against old guys and rookies should be beating us badly. Yeah, this is like the Soviets invading Berlin when it was just a bunch of kids and old men fighting them. Montreal should totally win this game. If they don't, that's going to be weird. Sam Driscoll says, I don't know how much more I can stand PK. I'd almost start Tokarski or Martin before him in the playoffs. Got to have that Suzuki goal, have to. I don't know if we're at that point with it yet, but that's what a lot of us in here have been talking about with Kochetkov. It's like a lot of us have been talking about with Kochetkov. It's the inconsistencies of it. And then he has those situations where I'm like, bro, you got to have a short memory here. He's kind of showing some signs of that tonight. Cooch is rattled at the worst time. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Our D prospects are great. Yeah. And, we got Sealy down there too. Charles Alexis Legault is someone who I could see in a couple of years making the team in a third pair right-handed shutdown role. Like, I would actually love one day, maybe down the line, a Charles Alexis Legault and Alexander Nikishin pair, because that would be intimidating. BTS says, I see what you're saying. I still agree with the similarities, but not as much after what you said. I'm in a weird position where I agree with both. Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance to discussions like that about players. Like when a lot of people when they compare players, they just will say, well, this guy has more points, so he's better. No, there's a lot more to it than that. When we're talking about a comparison like this one, there's a statistical comparison in a lot of cases, but with this one, we're talking more like just with what we see. When you bring in observations and biases or observations, cognitive biases and stuff like that into it, you might see things a little bit differently, because I know that there's times where people have pointed things out to me and I go, I didn't fucking know that. And sometimes you just need a fresh set of eyes, but I can see where they see some of those similarities there, but then I see something different. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's in the eyes of the beholder when it comes to stuff like that. But I can totally see why someone would see the similarities there with how they're both kind of undersized, but they both skate really well and play a speed game. I just see Stankoven utilize his speed in different situations in different ways than Caulfield does. And I see Caulfield as being more of a offense first goal scorer type, whereas Stankoven is more of a puck retrieval, puck pursuit, go get it and work for it type of guy. Nothing wrong with it, but I do see why people did see some similarities there, but that was just what I personally, excuse me, I've got the hiccups, what I personally observed. All Case Network says, I think you know the answer, but if you can only re-sign Hall or Robinson, who would you sign? Oh, God. Oh, man. That's a tough one for me. Reason being is here's the reason why this is tough for me. One, if you bring Eric Robinson back, you probably can get him on a type of contract that William Carrier is on, maybe a little bit shorter term. Because part of the reason Carrier signed what he signed was to make sure that he got his money because, let's face it, he does get injured a lot, and potentially he could have a injury that stops him from playing for good. So I understand why he got what he had because, Carrier is and at times an involuntary 13th forward, if you will, which means he's a great player. He's good enough to play. It's just injuries keep him out of the lineup a little bit more often than it should. Hey, Frank. Frank came over here to say hi, so I'm going to give him a pet real quick. So that would be the upside of keeping Robinson because then you have a cost-controlled forward going well into the future. So when you do need to make other trades and free agency acquisitions, you have the cap space to do it. And then on top of that, Eric Robinson is one of those guys you get a ton of bang for your buck because he exceeded everyone's expectations here. I didn't even expect him to be on the team, much less be one of our best and most consistent players in the bottom six. So if you bring a guy like that back on a really team-friendly deal, you make room for a lot of stuff and you still get a decent amount of offense out of him. Not a ton, but enough. You still get a penalty killer, defensively responsible player who goes out there and knows his role and does his job. Now, Taylor Hall, on the other hand, you're going to spend more money. It's going to be shorter term. Right now, I would say Taylor Hall could easily make $4 million the way that he's been playing. And then you look at, is this 3 years? Is this 4 years? But with Taylor Hall, you get a little bit more offense. You get a lot of experience that's going to be good for all the young guys that you got coming up. And you get someone who can be moved up and down the lineup. Robinson played well with Kotkaniemi and Natchez when he was up there, but he's not someone you want to leave up there all the time. Taylor Hall gives you a little bit more of that utilitarian ability to be moved up and down the lineup, kind of like Jesper Fast was. So that's one of those reasons you hold on to him because Taylor Hall is one of those guys that if you need to move someone up the lineup, let's say Blake is out or Jarvis is out, Taylor Hall's a great guy to go next to Aho and fill that spot for, whatever amount of time you need him to do it. So if I had to pick between the two, dude, that's almost a coin toss, but for different reasons. I got to go with Robinson. That was a photo finish between those two. I really that was a difficult one. I would have to go with Robinson in that case, and that is not a slight on Taylor Hall at all. But between those two, I'd rather bring back Eric Robinson, especially if we're talking from a cap percentage standpoint. Robinson will take up less, and over the course of several years, a contract like his would be pennies with the cap going up. So User 923 says, no, I'm not back, but it was a joke. LOL. Yeah, I thought maybe he was just going, I thought he was still fucking with me a little bit. I know he's probably watching that game right now, wondering because he's a Caps fan, so he's going to know who his opponent is going to be at that point. Ali Yasmin says, do you think the Caps make it to the second round? Yes, more than likely. Regardless of whether they play Montreal or Columbus, I think that they'll probably still get to the second round. Yes. They're a really good team. They're really deep. Their defense is not as good as ours as far as the defensive aspect of things goes. What they're really good at is quick outlet passes, quick zone exits, and joining the rush. So the forecheck is going to be really important against a team like Washington to be able to shut them down in their end before they can generate all that quick offense that they do. Their goaltending is really good with Logan Thompson. And they got plenty of weapons up front, and they kind of score by committee, even though they do have some guys who provide more offense than others. Everybody chips in for them. So shutting down Washington is going to be something that's going to have to be done in waves. It's going to have to be done constantly throughout a game. That being said, if you keep them off the board enough, I think that if you keep them off the board enough, you could potentially beat Washington in a few games, or like 6 or 7. If it goes on, if a series between Washington and Montreal or Washington and Columbus goes on for longer, then Washington would probably have to start sweating a little bit. It was the same thing when we played them in 2019. I remember telling people up here, I said, if you don't beat the Hurricanes in 5 games, they will drag you into a war of attrition and they will beat you in 7. And that's exactly what happened. So I think it's kind of the same case this time around. You can wear Washington down. Yeah, they're more physical, but you can play with more pace than them and wear them down, war of attrition through speed. A team like Montreal could potentially do that. A team like Columbus could potentially do that. You don't need to try and match their physicality because you're not going to. You just got to outwork them. So if that were to happen, that's how it would go down, but I don't think Washington will lose the first round, no. Now, if we play them, that's a completely different discussion. That one would, in my opinion, would take 7 games, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Like I said, I'm not taking the Devils lightly, much less Washington. So Dylan Bollinger says KK's the only fighter we have. Mark Knuckle throw. Burns back in the day actually fought a lot, and not while he was playing for us, but he will. I could see Sean Walker dropping his gloves too. He gets under people's skin. Svechnikov, he'll fight. I mean, he doesn't do it much nowadays, but when he fought Vince Dunn that one time, he let him have it. So he's totally capable of it. We got a few guys that would throw if they needed to. I mean, I would prefer a lot of them not, because we are a little bit lacking on size. Nikishin, he registered a few fights over in the K. There was one guy he tangoed with that it didn't end too well for Nikishin. It was I forget his name. I actually saw him play when I went to a Providence Bruins game back in the day. My ship stopped in Rhode Island, and I went there and I saw this guy play then, and dude could fucking throw. And yeah, I just don't want too many guys out there throwing. It's like, do it when you have to, but it's not one of those things that needs to be done a lot. But we got a few guys whole throw. KK, if I had to, be in a pick your fighter situation, KK would be my guy. Sam Driscoll says PK could see that last goal too. If you watch from the angle behind you, the net, you can see he got a look at it and just missed it with the blocker. Yeah, but I think he was a little bit screened on that one too. But I don't know. They do have some decisions to make in net. Dylan Bollinger says Robidas goal in the Wolves game. Oh, cool. Alrighty. And he also says Fensori has been fun to watch. Can he be a Kane sooner than later? See, I just don't know where we're going to have room for him, though. That's the only thing. It's like we're going to be so stacked that it's not even funny. But here is one thing we do have to consider with him performing pretty well tonight. I mean, he's a left-handed shot, though. If he was right-handed, I'd be like, well, maybe we can move more out, but we also need guys for, we need people who can quarterback the power play, and Morrow's one of those guys going into the future. So that's the only other thing about it. All Canes Network says, wow, I thought you would go for Hall for the re-sign question I asked, because if Tulski adds a Marner or Besser, that is the question he will be facing. Yeah, that's another reason why you bring up a really good point there. That's another reason why I went with Robinson in that situation. With Robinson, it's like, okay, yeah, there's other guys like him out in the league, but if you go ahead and lock him up now, you know exactly what you're getting with him. You're not paying him a whole lot of money, and you put him in the bottom 6, let him do his job, and that frees up money in cap space. Because, like, okay, so let's say you sign Taylor Hall instead of Eric Robinson, you're going to be spending a couple million more AAV to do that. And even with all the space that the Canes have, that goes away really, really quick. And if you sign Taylor Hall, that's $2 million less. You throw at someone like Mitch Marner or Brock Besser or Nikolai Ehlers or someone like that. So that could make the difference between you signing somebody like that you need to and not. Not to mention, you could potentially, if depending on what you want to do in free agency, you could sign, in my opinion anyway, I'd have to really crunch the numbers on this and figure it out. If you signed Taylor Hall and Eric Robinson, you could probably still afford Nikolai Ehlers or Brock Besser. Mitch Marner would probably come off the table for you at that point, but I have my doubts about bringing Marner in. Out of those 3 guys, the safest bet, I think would be Ehlers, and he would probably be maybe a little bit more expensive than Besser, but he definitely wouldn't cost as much as Marner. So as far as cost effective, get what you need and bring a guy in that you know already fits, like because he's gonna love this system. Nikolai Ehlers would. He really would. I think he would flourish here. And if you want to get someone like him, you could do that. But from a standpoint of I want to keep as much cap space clear as possible, and I also want to have a player for long term that will do exactly what I know he will do for longer, then that's why I would go with E-Rob in that case. And like I said, that's nothing against Taylor Hall. He's great. It's just if I were GM, that's what I would build first. Colby McLam says, since we're in the intermission and it's been brought up, thoughts on Marner on the Canes, highly unlikely, but seems to be a lot of interest. So here's my reluctance with bringing in someone like Marner. One, if you go get, okay, so here's what I personally believe. If you go out into free agency, you could potentially get Besser and Ehlers, I think, with all the cap space they have. If you get Marner, you pretty much eliminate the possibility, I think, of getting, and this was without me having the numbers in front of me as far as like cap percentages and everything go. If you go out and get Marner, you eliminate getting Ehlers and Besser both. If you get Ehlers and Besser, you eliminate getting Marner. I don't think there's any way you can get a combination of Marner and Ehler or Bessers being the other two of those players there if you're talking about the money. So as far as Marner as a fit as a player, I think he would be great. I think we would be paying him a little bit too much just because of his market value, especially since he just had a 100-point season. Surprisingly, first one he's ever had, as great of a player as he is. He gets a lot of Selke votes. He's really good on the defensive side of things, so there wouldn't be an issue there. My whole thing about it is I'm sitting here thinking about what the hell would Mitch Marner make for money, and he would be one of the few guys on the team, or at that particular point, he would be the only guy on the team making more money than Aho. So you're looking at dropping at least $11 million on Marner, probably, if not more. At a minimum, you're dropping $11 million, maybe 11.5, maybe 12. So whereas Nikolai Ehlers and Brock Besser, you could bring both of them in for maybe, if you work it right, you could bring both of them in for, I don't know, $17, $18 million cap hit between the two of them and average annual value. So, and I'd always rather get more players than that. So I whenever presented with a situation where I can have two players instead of one, I would normally do that, because if Mitch Marner gets hurt, you lose 100% of Mitch Marner for however long he's out. If you bring in Nikolai Ehlers and Brock Besser and you only lose one, you've at least still got the other for whatever amount of time one of them's out. So as far as him fitting in, I don't think that would be a problem. As far as him being a great guy to play with Aho and Jarvis, also would not be a problem. And let me look at one thing real quick, because whoever they go get, it needs to be for Aho and Jarvis. They don't need to break them up again. I don't care who's out. That line has way too much chemistry. So, plus Marner's a right-handed shot, but he can play both sides. So I personally wouldn't do it just from that standpoint. All Canes Network, thank you. I saw that. I personally wouldn't bring him in from that standpoint, but also at the same time, I'm kind of like, a player like that doesn't pop up in free agency very often. And then we don't have to worry about anything along the lines of like, oh, well, look, the player doesn't want to play here, like with the Rantanen thing and with the Gensel thing. It would be like, hey, it's free agency. If you sign here, you clearly want to be here, so you don't have that factor being an issue either. I personally would rather go out and get Ehlers first and Besser maybe if the price is right. Besser also has an injury history, but he can also shoot a puck really well. That being said, you already have someone like Nadeau in the lineup, and if you bring in someone like Besser, you're potentially like, that's one less roster spot that you have for him to come in. So maybe he would want to go somewhere else, or maybe you package him up in a trade. There's going to be a lot of moving parts with that. Marner, I'm not opposed to bringing him in, but if we pay him too much and miss out on potentially having Ehlers and Besser both, or something along those lines, then I would have some skepticism about it. But I don't see it happening either. I wouldn't be upset with it if it did. So it would be one of those things where I'm like, okay, let's see how this works. But it's not one of those things where I'm banging my fist on the table saying, throw every dollar you have at the guy to get him. He's great, but he's not someone that I think would be as impactful as people think he would be for the amount of money he would be making. That's the only thing. And that's nothing against Marner as a player. I like Marner. It's just free agency signings that big when you're a team that's already on the cusp of being a contender, they can be kind of risky. So that's the only other thing with it. Dylan Ballinger says Tyler Seguin is back in less than a minute and he gets an assist. I hate Tyler Seguin. I cannot fucking stand him. I never have liked him. Lady Yasmin said, I remember when the trade first happened, the Devils podcast was really mad we got Taylor Hall, and that made me immediately love him. Yeah. I don't know which Devils podcaster it was. There's a couple of them I'm cool with. I just don't like those two guys at the Hockey News that said a bunch of shit that was unverifiably probably not true. So same thing with there was one AHL reporter I've called out on multiple occasions for saying stuff about the Hurricanes and the Wolves. Like he wrote one article a couple of years ago about the whole split and everything like that, and it was just bullshit. And then he wrote a follow-up to it that was also bullshit, and I've done my best to never click on his website ever since because I don't want to give him a click. Box him out, boys. You gotta have that rebound. Okay, that was a little bit better from Gochekov, but he almost overcommitted there again. But damn it, I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, so oh yeah, and then apparently he wrote something else about the Canes and the Wolves like this season over the reunification. And from what I was told about that article by someone who read it, I said I'm not going to read it because I really don't fucking like that guy and I don't want to give him a dime of ad revenue. Apparently, the Chicago Wolves were supposed to be wearing the red and black, like the gloves the Canes are wearing tonight. They were supposed to be wearing those with the Chicago Wolves sweaters, and the Canes, since they were in charge of hockey operations, were supposed to build the new practice facility and were apparently refusing to do it. Well, here's the thing. The Chicago Wolves are still wearing black gloves, and their practice facility is being built. They even showed a rendering on it on one of the Wolves broadcasts. Nothing that guy, or in regards to the Hurricanes and the Wolves, not much he says with that whole dynamic ever actually came true or was any way really verified. And a bunch of people just lapped up and fucking believed everything that he said in the Wolves side of things. And I don't like a lot of Chicago Wolves fans. I'll just be straight with you. Some of them are all right, but for the most part, it's like they get upset about players getting called up. And I'm like, bro, you would hate being a fan of the SPHL if you get that attached to these guys that quick. The SPHL, there is so much player movement. Like the transactions, it's fucking crazy. So they really would not last being a fan of that league. Same thing with the E, but the SPHL, I think, has more player movement and transactions than any league I've ever seen. So Dylan Bollinger says Suzuki goal and Nystrom first AHL point. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, good. Third period starting. Thank you. It was running with the Devils, I think. I don't think I know those guys. Not that I'm aware of. But like I said, the ones I'm cool with, I Neil Villapiano, he's always been cool to me, and Devils Joint's a good buddy of mine. Him and I talk about dogs more than anything. Like we talk about hockey too, but we really like to talk about our dogs. Dylan Bollinger says, if we somehow brought in both Besser and Ehlers, who goes top line with 20 and 24? Ehlers. I would give Ehlers the first chance to be that guy immediately. I really would. That line would not score a ton. Like if you looked at like their per 60 metrics, at least the way I'm imagining it in my tiny brain, if you looked at their per 60 metrics, just the way I imagine it, those guys would have like probably like 2.2 goals per 60 or something like that. But the goals against would be like less, like 0.9 or something like that. They would produce huge net positives, just not at a very fast rate. Skyler got a shot off there. I think a lot of these guys are just ready for this game to be done and for the playoffs to start. BTS says, remember the article about McDavid coming here? I'm pretty sure you made a bit about that. Oh, boy. That was... Dude, that was... I've not heard anything negative about Cardiac Kane in a long time. The last thing I heard about them is that they only have 2 writers now. And I have not heard nor seen anything, because when they posted really stupid, fucked up shit, it got around pretty fast, i.e. that article. And I guess they've improved in some way or another. I won't give them any ad revenue if I can help it. I haven't looked at Cardiac Kane in I don't know how long, because I remember they posted something else one time that I went to go roast. But here's the thing about it, and Caniac Sessions had this guy on. He's on X as, I think it's red_on_bottom. And he used to work for Cardiac Kane, and he did an episode with them before I went on with Caniac Sessions full time. And he was talking about like what they do there was like they purposely post stuff like that and chalk it full of URLs and ads and everything like that, because it's how they make money. So not only are they writing stupid shit, they're not even writing stupid shit in good faith. They're just doing it to get people to click on it. And I'm like, all right, I don't agree with that type of business model. And that other moron who says all the stuff about how Orlov is the one bailing Chatfield out, which is couldn't be more fucking wrong. He was a site expert for all those fan-sided websites, which is another way of saying writer. And they're just that I just do my best not to mess with them at all. But for those of you wondering, on my channel, there is a video called Cardiac Kane Attempts to Put Canes Fans in Cardiac Arrest. This was an article that someone over at Cardiac Kane, who as far as I know is no longer there, made the suggestion that we could trade for Connor McDavid with a 1-for-1 trade, including or something along the lines of a 1-for-1 trade with Martin Necas, or trading him straight up for cash, which is not allowed under the NHL collective bargaining agreement at all. This isn't baseball. You can't trade people for cash considerations. But, oh boy, wrote that in there anyway. That article has been deleted long since. However, it will forever live on in the video I made about it, because it was so bad, I just felt like I had to call it out. Because I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is why people think Canes fans are idiots, is because of shit like this. And they're going to be malicious towards us anyway, but now you're just giving them fucking reason. Aaliyah Yasmin said, heard Martin disappears in the playoffs. Would hate to throw him with so much money at a guy like that. Yeah, that's the other thing about it. So Marner is better defensively and a little bit more complete of a player than like Necas is, but you know, there's a reputation that Necas had of disappearing in the playoffs. I'm like, well, we might as well just kept Necas if that's the case with Marner. That's why when people were talking about, oh, the Canes can go get Trevor Zegras to be a second line center, I'm like, if you're going to do that, you might as well just put Necas at center, because he'd be better at it. Trevor Zegras is another one of those players that, like, when a couple of seasons ago, The Athletic does those anonymous polls, and the league voted him the most overrated player in the league, and I couldn't agree more. He really is. Like, I think Jack Hughes is given a little bit more fair reviews by people, including me, who don't like him, and is a better player than Trevor Zegras. Trevor Zegras is he's literally a trick shot artist. Like, he's an NHL player, but he's not what people think he is. There's a reason why he didn't even get looked at for Team USA for the Four Nations face-off. He's a very incomplete player. He does some flashy offensive stuff. He skates well. That's about it. So I know I upset some people with that, but I'm like, I don't care. I don't like him. I don't think he's good. I really don't. All righty. Game will be back on here in a minute. Let me see if there's anything else here. Leah says Zegras is so overrated. It's insane. We'll never understand the hype. I don't either. I understand the Jack Hughes hype more than I understand the Trevor Zegras hype. Jack Hughes can actually at least make a team better. Trevor Zegras, I don't feel like he does that. I don't think he's better than Leo Carlson or Mason McTavish. Like, I don't, after we beat them last time, some guy on X was trying to say, oh, Trevor Zegras would be the third best player on your team. I'm like, you realize he's playing wing on your third line and he's not even playing his natural position or in the top six, and you think he'd be the third best forward on the Hurricanes? Okay. Whatever you say, pal. All right, let's see what we got here for third period here. Let's make something happen, boys. Montreal's even it up in shots. Just about, anyway. But yeah, a lot of the hype around Zegras was just like he did a couple of cool lacrosse goals, and next thing you know, he's on the cover of NHL 23 or whatever it was. And me, I was just kind of like, why? I don't get that, but okay. That was a pretty good shift from KK there, getting in on the forecheck, laying the body on him there, and then going to the front of the net when he got a second chance to go there. So, man, I will never talk shit about people who can do live play-by-play stuff, because I'm just sitting here like trying to quantify my thoughts about all this stuff going on. I can only imagine like how hard it is to actually like call play-by-play stuff. I don't think I could ever do it. I really couldn't. No one's better than John Forslund. Sorry, Mike, but John is the GOAT. Gary Thorne was my other favorite. Gary Thorne's my other favorite. I like Gord Miller. Let's see. Not the current Winnipeg guy, but the previous Winnipeg guy that also did the World Juniors. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. I think he still does the World Juniors, actually. He's really good. Randy Hahn of the Sharks, I like him. I can't remember his name, the Florida Panthers guy. I think he's pretty solid. The Nashville guy is pretty good. Yeah, there's a lot of commentators I really, really like. It's a hard thing to do. Let's see. Dylan says, I'm about over Rosie. He's kind of the leading candidate right now to potentially get scratched in the playoffs. I mean, we're kind of at that point. And it's just he's not the best fit. All Canes Network says Caps play-by-play is good. Yeah, I don't mind the Caps play-by-play, but Loughlin is what kind of does me in on the Caps play-by-play. He's just a little bit too much of a homer for my taste. Beninati's pretty solid, so I have an impartiality of disliking the Caps, so I think that that's where that comes from, because I've heard Beninati call NCAA games and stuff before, and way back in the day when the NHL was on Versus, he was on there and I thought he was pretty good, but when he gets into like a homer situation, I don't enjoy it so much. But like as far as his ability to keep pace with the game and call it, he's really good at that. Bob Wischusen is really good. When he called our game this past weekend, I was really happy he called that game. Mike Monaco was pretty solid. Kenny Albert, I don't care for. Don't even get me started on fucking Eddie Olczyk, because he just absolutely ruins everything that he fucking. He's never met a microphone that he didn't fucking talk shit about the Canes into. So, Sam Rosen, yes, that's another good one. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into this game, Aaliyah. Yeah, All Canes is right. This is no big deal. I know that we've struggled on the road this year, but I think once they settle in the playoffs and we have a definitive lineup and everything, and everybody gets acclimated and settled in, they get a couple of games in Raleigh against New Jersey, and then they go there and they try to apply a lot of the same things when they actually play in New Jersey, and I think that they'll remember how to win on the road after that and then go from there. I really, really think that they'll be better on the road. It's either going to be that or it's going to repeat of 2021, 2022, where they couldn't win on the road and they couldn't score on the power play, and then eventually they finally ran out of gas and we got laughed out of our own building. So we'll see what happens with that, because I was just sitting there watching that with. I remember I had 2 jobs at the time. I was working at Pure Hockey on the weekends. I got home, I was watching that game, and I just knew from the get-go, I'm like, we're not going to win. Like, I saw the way guys were coming out of the tunnel, and I was just like, New York's got all the energy right now. Funny story about that. I had a friend at that game, or he was at game 5 as well. And he texted me during the first period, I want to say, and he said, 2 rows in front of me, there's someone here wearing a Ranger sweater that was wearing a Kane sweater at game 5. And I'm like, that doesn't surprise me. They felt the momentum of the series shift, and they decided to temporarily switch their fandom back, which I've seen that so many times. But he told me about that, and then I just saw the way that game was going, and about halfway through the third period, I think it was after Filipino scored. I'm like, you know what, fuck this, we're done. And my dad texted me, he's like, yeah, we're done. I'm like, yeah, I know we are. So I started to flip over to the Braves game, and he texts me. He says, well, yeah, I've already stopped watching, and I'm watching the Braves. He's like, well, they're losing too. And I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm done with sports today. So I just turned the fucking TV off and went and loaded the dishwasher or something. I don't remember. But I was just like, that was awful. Good control there, Cooch. Why can't you just be a little bit more consistent with shit like this, and you will be fine? But yeah, Leah, yeah, Sam Rosen, good too. Dylan Bollinger, Rosie's my odd man out in the playoffs. I think he's got to be, dude. It's just not there with him. And we already know he's going to walk, so he's definitely not coming back. Aaliyah says, no, I don't really care about this game. I mean, recently we've been bad on the road. Yeah, that's something that definitely has to get fixed. But like I said, I think once they get settled into playing against New Jersey, get their lines established, know exactly who's playing with who, have a couple of good games at home, hopefully win them both, and then I think they'll go on the road and they'll be in a rhythm from those 2 home games, and they'll take it with them. I legitimately believe that's what will happen. The second round is going to be tough should we get there and should the expected opponent be there. But New Jersey is not going to go down as easy as people think they are. Like I said, I'd be less worried about Jack Hughes than I would be Nico Hischier if it were him out instead of if Nico Hischier were out instead of Jack Hughes. I'd be less worried, just to be perfectly honest, because really good 200-foot players like that come in handy against a team like Carolina to counteract how good they play a 200-foot defensive game and everything like that. So that's the whole thing about it. But I'll talk about all that when I do the series forecast, which actually I will show you all a little preview of when this game is over, how I've got the slides set up and everything like that. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll actually pull them up right now and load them, and then I can show you. That Megan 2.0 thing is creepy. It looks like the fucking doll from Chucky to me. I'm sorry. I don't even know what the fuck it is, but it's just weird looking to me. See, can I upload multiple things at once? Okay, there's one. There we go. All right. Yeah, as soon as the game's over, I'll show you all these real quick. Good pinch there by Sean Walker. Damn. Orlov's stick just fucking exploded. See, all right, that shows a little bit of an evolution in Morrow's game there, how he got back, did that quick little turn and go, and then join the rush. And he's still staying engaged offensively right there at the blue line. That's good. And cycle it around the boards. Come on, boys. You got to work it to the front of the net here a little bit better. You got three pretty big guys out there. Like, crash the damn net. Taylor Hall, KK, or Hall, KK, and Svechnikov is a line that I actually really like. If they leave that together, I'm not upset. Because then you can have, I mean, actually, that's pretty solid if you have. Actually, you know what? I'm going to type this up real quick. Just because I kind of want to see it on paper. Y'all tell me what you think of that right there, please. All right, let's watch Morrow quarterback this breakout here. Good pass, good entry. Morrow's got all the offensive instinct in the world. He's just got to have a really good shutdown defenseman. Hey, we scored. There we go. There you go. Bradley Nadeau fought really hard there in front of the net to make that happen. And Tyson Jost goes in there and finishes it off. I think they're going to challenge this, though. Let's see what happens here. I want to see if Montreal challenges this because I guess they're not going to. I didn't think they would, but they didn't have much of a case if they did. That's just good hard work goal right there. See, that's another thing I like to see. Nadeau, even though he's a skilled guy and he's a sniper, he's still going to the dirty areas and helping out to score greasy goals like that. Because if Taylor Hall hadn't put that in there, you know, Bradley Nadeau very well could have himself. Good keep by Ghost. Canes are pushing now. They might make this interesting. All right, I'll take that off the screen. Aaliyah says, winning a game at Prudential would be amazing, though I hate the Devils. Yeah, that was beating them as badly as we did in Game 4 was awesome. I remember during Game 3 when I was watching it, I'm like, okay. I remember watching Game 3, and I'm like, okay, so we scored 2 shorthanded goals. Jordan Martinook scored on a penalty shot, and we still lost the game. It just wasn't our night. We're going to be fine. And then we ended up beating them in 5. Honestly, I thought the worst that Carolina played in that series other than Game 3 was Game 5 when they actually ended it. But it is a good feeling to win on the road. It's like, I won't say what phrase I used to describe it to my friend Sam Driscoll, who has been in the chat here today. But I will say that winning a game on the road is a remarkable feeling. I've been fortunate enough to experience that in Washington multiple times. Pittsburgh and Florida. The next 2 rinks I want to try, or next 2 arenas I want to try and make are going to be Tampa and Nashville, I think, are going to be my next 2. I really liked Florida. Pittsburgh was all right. I don't think I'd go there again. Florida I really enjoyed, but I also really like Florida. That's part of the reason we're moving to Charleston, South Carolina, is because of it's got some similar climate to Florida in the low country. There's Washington, obviously, like I live here, so that's a different story. Eventually, I would like to get a nationwide arena. That was going to be something I do here because it's either a 6-hour drive or a 1 hour and 12-minute flight. I just never got the chance to do it. But yeah, winning a game on the road and you get to be there to see it feels really good. And I love beating them in their own. I love beating anybody in their own building, but there's something special about beating the Devils. Reese Bailey says Hurricanes road record in the playoffs for the last 3 seasons is 5-13. Yeah, and part of the reason that's such a problem is because of the 21-22 season, because 6 of those 13 losses come from that. And because when 22-23 rolled around, they were actually pretty solid on the road. They won the series against the Islanders. They won the series against the Islanders in 2023 on the road. They won 1 game against the Devils on the road. So, like, they were doing pretty solid then. And then last year, they won on the road twice as well. Game 3 against the Islanders and Game 5 against the Rangers. So it's improved a lot from that particular season. I just don't want this one to be like 21-22. I think it'll be better next year once you have some more guys that you get in free agency or trades or whatever it is, that however you address the roster issues that you need to address. And then this team will get a lot harder to beat on the road. But like I said, once they settle into a groove and once you know exactly what the lines are going to be, I think that they'll be... Damn, Taylor Hall just about tied it. I think that they'll be fine. I really do this year. I don't think this is going to be a repeat of 21-22. I just know that a more difficult first round than I think people are acknowledging awaits us. And then should we get past that, the second round is going to be incredibly difficult because you have to play with you have to potentially play Washington, which I think is 2nd overall in the league or something like that, 3rd, whatever they are now. See, this is the type of stuff that I like KK doing, the way he uses. Yeah, Taylor Hall hit the post. But KK made that happen. He comes there, he's below the circle, cuts to the middle of the ice, and he uses his reach to protect the puck. And not only does he use his reach to protect the puck, but that also helped him execute that pass. KK does a lot of really good things like that really well. That's why I don't want him to go, because him being a third-line center is going to be a third-line center with a really good amount of possession and offensive upside. So that's... Jordan Stahl's not going to play forever. You need someone to fill that role, and KK, he is that guy. So, but yeah, I'm hoping the road record will be significantly better because it's not been bad the last 2 seasons. It's been more so the 21-22 season was where that got to be really bad. BTS says, what's that white thing on Cooch wearing on his nose? I'm fairly certain it's one of those nose magnets to help you breathe better, but I don't know. Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's one of those breathe right strip type of things. And I think that that's probably to help. He may have, goalie masks are not as safe as a lot of people think they are. I played goalie for like a week and I'm like, yeah, fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. Maybe he sustained some sort of injury at some point. And maybe his septum is fucked up now, because I know that I had surgery on mine last year and I've been able to breathe a whole lot better since then. Like old pictures of me, like my nose is like, it looks like it's on the side of my fucking face compared to where it is now. So that could potentially be a reason why he's wearing something like that. I have no idea. That's just speculation on my part. A lot of race car drivers wear those under their helmets. Pilots wear them sometimes. So they do help out with breathing, which he's not the only goalie I've seen wear that. I've seen a couple others wear it. So All Canes Network says, I like the lines, but only problem, I don't think Rod keeps the jab line together because of how small it is. Yeah, and that was his philosophy last season with breaking up the jag line when Gensel was here. And against the Islanders, okay, I kind of understood that. Really heavy team. They try to be physical and slow you down and everything like that. Against them, I understood. Against the Rangers, I thought the jag line should have stayed together. Trip Tracy already said that the jab line should not be broken up at all. And I'm like, I tend to agree with that because that line is really, really good. The only reason I would want to break that lineup in the future is if you go get Nikolai Ehlers and put him there, or even Besser, but more so Nikolai Ehlers. And that's just personally. Elias says, agreed. I really like Svets, KK, and Hall together. Yeah, I think it's not the greatest second line in the world, but considering what we have, it's solid. Where Carolina's strengths are really going to come from are going to be the all-around depth that you have in the bottom 9. So that line and everyone below it, and them scoring by committee and winning by committee and, playing good defensively and everything like that and keeping games close and letting the really skilled guys win, letting the defense, put some shots through and all that type of stuff to potentially, get net positives in other ways. So let's see. We got 2:55 to go here. They're going to be looking to lift Cooch here shortly, I imagine. Wouldn't do it yet, and you're only down by 1. But yeah, it's not the most stellar top 6 by any means, but between all 4 of these lines, it's good depth that could get a lot of stuff done, especially if you're talking about having Carrier back in the lineup and the Stahl, Martinook, and Carrier line can go into that pure shutdown role that gives you a little bit of offense. And then you can let the other guys be the ones who worry about actually providing the scoring, because Taylor Hall's provided a really big boost to the middle 6 in particular. So, which is where he would be utilized the most and everything like that. And like I said, if we need to bump somebody up the lineup for whatever reason, Taylor Hall's probably my first choice. So we'll see how that goes. Dylan Bollinger says Nadeau got a point there. Yes, he did. Martinook in the summer of 2023 was bonkers. He actually took over round 2. Yeah, bro, he was making a Conn Smythe case. And I was sitting there hoping and praying. I'm like, please if we win the cup, or at least get to the finals, because as we've seen before last year, notably, you can win the Conn Smythe on the losing team. Please, if I can have one thing other than Carolina winning a Stanley Cup, I want to see Jordan Martinook win the Conn Smythe just so I can watch people get fucking outraged about it. What do you mean a third line grinder won the Conn Smythe? That would have made my day. I would have loved that more than anything. All right, let's see what we can do here. Yeah, Taylor Hall's been all over the place in this game, man. He's been so good tonight. He's been good since he got here, but he's been really damn good tonight. Let's see what we got going on here. We have 188 people watching right now. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. KK, you got to win that draw there, buddy. Yep, that's that. Oof. KK just got outright beat there on that face off. Just nobody get injured, please. This game is literally fucking meaningless. $76 is a weird number for a forward, in my opinion, but maybe that's just because I've seen PK Subban and Brady Shea wear it so much. Yeah, there ain't much more to talk about with this one. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down here. All right. Shutting down watching the game, not the other stuff. All right. So I'm going to show you guys some stuff real quick. So Friday night, what I'm planning on doing is this right here. This is going to be the player grades. So a lot of guys are going to just have simple grades. I'm going to add Tyson Jost in here because I forgot to initially. So anybody who's not been with the team all season or didn't play a ton, like William Carrier, for example, they're just going to get simple grades from us. Now, when we go into other players, and, forgive if any of this is incorrect, I just took one template, copied them over, and then I'm going to start adding more stuff in. We're going to break down the core players and the guys who've been here all season in a little bit more detail. We'll have a bunch of their stats up. And it'll also be tailored to, like, each individual player and everything. Like, for example, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, he doesn't really kill penalties, so we won't talk about that too much. Jordan Staal, not on the power play typically, but he does kill penalties, so his penalty kill stats will be there. And then we'll just have everything for. Oh, here's a really good example right here with the defenseman. We'll have like their 5-on-5 individual stats, their stats with their partner off of Money Puck, penalty kill statistics, for example, here with Jacob Slavin. Then you have someone like, let me go back. Where's Ghost at? Goss's Bear, for example, I've got his 5-on-5 individual, his stats with his D partner, and then eventually that bottom line there is going to be his power play statistics. I just have to swap one out for the other, and that's how that's going to look. So I'm going to remove that one and then show you this one. This is going to be kind of what the playoff forecast is going to look like. It looks the same as, say, it looks the same, and this is obviously incomplete. All this is going to be completely different when it gets started, but essentially it's going to be a lot like the regular Landfall Hour format, but it's going to have, this is going to be the head-to-head statistics from their season series. Team leaders, obviously, I'll have all that in there. 5-on-5 forecast. I would like to do this for Landfall Hour more often, but it's time-consuming to get this particular thing done. And then what's going to be really cool here is the expected goals and the goals percentage of each individual line of their projected lineups going into the series. Each individual player will be in here, and their stats together as a line. And then we'll do the same thing with the defensive pairs. And then we'll have a total expected goals and a total goals percentage, so you get an idea of what rate each line is scoring at and what rate each line is producing chances at. And, of course, it'll have all the normal stuff in there about edge data, zone time. Now, this is something I'm really looking forward to getting done. This is basically going to be a checkerboard model talking about the special teams differences. So you'll have the overall power play and overall penalty kill, overall power play goals, and total shorthanded goals for both teams. The second box here is going to be all 5-on-4 conventional power play stuff, and you'll be able to compare goals for and goals against, for example, to see where each team maybe potentially has an advantage when you really break it down, and each individual advanced metric. And then down at the bottom, you'll have a little bit of miscellaneous stuff. For example, the 5-on-3 percentage, the 4v3 penalty kill percentage, stuff that doesn't happen as often as conventional 5-on-4 power plays will be touched on, but it won't really be like something we talk about a whole lot in those streams, but it's just to kind of paint a picture of how these teams are going to look against each other, who has what types of advantages and everything like that. And we'll have the normal goalie matchup stuff, the regular potential advantages, winning elements. So it'll basically be a lot like normal Landfall Hour, but the biggest things that are going to be different is, one, you're going to have the special teams comparison that's pretty in-depth, and you're also going to have the actual full lineup in here talked about, so we can talk about each individual player. And then overall, looking at how these teams compare 5-on-5. 5-on-5 is the most important thing because that is how the majority of the game is played. And we'll, of course, look at how these teams did head-to-head against each other, comparing how they did in the regular season overall and directly. So the player grades will hopefully be on Friday night. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be able to do that. We're pretty well ahead on the packing and everything. And then on Saturday is when I'm planning on either doing a live stream or a pre-recorded version of the series forecast for the Hurricanes and the Devils, and that'll be the last thing you guys see from me other than regular everyday posts on X for quite some time. once I get down there and get my desk set up and get everything settled in and get everything on the walls and everything like that, then I will get back to making stuff. So that's going to be it for me tonight, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. This was a whole lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to go eat some leftovers, get me a nap in. I'll get these last comments in here real quick. Aaliyah says, I would love to go to an NHL game one day. The only interesting live sport we have in Singapore is Formula One. Yeah, and this is where, so I'm actually a really big racing nerd as well. You can ask Dylan, he'll verify that. I have not enjoyed Formula One since probably about 2014 or 2015. I remember I had this tradition I used to do on Memorial Day weekend here in America. We where you wake up in the morning, the Monaco Grand Prix was on, then the Indy 500 would be on, and then the Coca-Cola 600 would be on. It was one of my favorite days of the year because I'd wake up in the morning, I'd make breakfast, I'd watch Monaco, I'd take a nap, I'd make lunch, I'd watch Indy, I'd order some dinner, and I'd watch the Coke 600. It was really awesome. And Formula One, I just kind of felt like, and I haven't watched in a long time, maybe it's changed, but I felt like it just got to the point where everybody dive bombed turn one on lap one, and then it was a procession parade until the end of the race. And I'm just like, I'd rather watch IndyCar than this. I feel like it's the superior open wheel racing. I still do. I like IMSA a lot too. So like I watch like some sports car racing and everything like that, V8 supercars, all that. Formula One is just one thing. I felt like it was never the same after 2015, 2016. I didn't even get excited to watch any of them anymore. I don't know why. It just felt to me like I was watching a parade more than a race. So now, don't get me wrong, NASCAR's had those problems too. Like Dylan, we all know what the 550 engine package did to any track that was a mile and a half. So, you know, it's got its fucking issues too. But Formula One, it just didn't hold my interest anymore at that point. Reese Bailey said Canadiens get 3 opportunities on the power play and Canes get 1. Like, what's the deal with that? Carolina carried play most of the game, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I was watching it here with you guys, but I was also being a little bit passive about it too, since we were talking about other stuff and everything like that. So Dylan Bollinger says, well, I really like St. Louis personally. Oh, referring to the coach of the Habs, who is also a hockey legend. Yeah, I like him too. BTS says, if we don't win the cup, I'm pulling for Minnesota, but I still hope we win it, just making that clear. Yeah, if Carolina doesn't win it, who would I like to see win it if Carolina doesn't win it? Because I got a long-ass list of who I don't want to see win it. If not the Canes, who would I want to see win? That is a tough one. I would have said Dallas a few weeks ago because I like a lot of their players. Like, I'm really, like, they have a lot of my favorite non-Hurricanes, like Heiskanen, Hintz, Johnston, Robertson. Now that's off the table. That wouldn't fucking happen now. Because fuck Mikko Rantanen. Probably Colorado. I wouldn't mind seeing them win again. If I wanted to see someone who hadn't won in a long, I mean, LA, like Warren Fogel's out there. I don't think I'd be too upset about that. I'd have to really give this some thought. If Carolina couldn't win, who would I want? There's nobody in the East I think I would want to win, like, at all. Because don't want Montreal to win. Don't want Ottawa to win. Don't want Washington to win. Definitely, sure as hell don't want New Jersey to win if they were to get past us. Fuck that shit. Don't have to worry about the Rangers winning this year. Islanders, LOL. I guess Colorado, just because of nature. Oh, hell, people are saying that in the chat, yeah. Dylan says, Wings beating the Devils. Good deal. Used to do the same now. I watch pieces of the Indy 500, but all the 600. Yeah, I'm going to go to the 600 one day. I actually went to the Winston in 2004, the last time it was called the Winston, before, you know, tobacco sponsorships were outlawed and they had to start calling it the All-Star Race and all that. Dylan Bollinger says, man, the empty seats at the Devils game, how they're already leaving. For me, in my opinion, Colorado because of Natchez. Yeah, Natchez and Drury both. So, yeah, I guess if I had to see someone other than Carolina win it, I would not mind seeing Colorado win. Yeah, I'd go for the Avs. BTS says, I want LA to beat the Oilers. They might do it this time around. I think they really could. They've got a much better team than they had last year. And I think they could. I really do. Dylan says they got our boys and be funny doing it without Mikko. That would be fucking hilarious. You know, it's like, and it also raises the question. It's like it's like Mikko said he was willing to take a pay cut, but Colorado didn't really seem to like engage with him a whole hell of a lot about keeping him. Maybe they knew something we didn't, because I wonder what Dallas's record is. I haven't had the chance to look at it. I wonder what Dallas's record is since they got Rantanen. I haven't looked, so I don't know. But if it's not good, maybe Colorado knew something we didn't, and they were dumping their problems off on us, and then we dumped them somewhere else, if that's the case. But, it's like ever since Mark Jankowski came in here and fucking sniped Connor Hellebuck, I was like, yeah, you fuck Mikko Rantanen. Who the fuck is Mikko Rantanen? We don't need that motherfucker. So, Aaliyah says, yeah, I wouldn't be mad at the Avs one, as long as they didn't beat Carolina. Would love to see Mikko's reaction to the Avs winning the cup. Yeah, I would too. That would be something. All right, guys, I'm going to go have some leftovers. I'm going to go give my dog some belly rubs. I hope you guys liked what you saw with the slides and everything like that. Once I fill out the data and everything, it'll look a whole lot better. And like I said, the series forecast is going to be a checkerboard model, so I'm going to be able to actually highlight where Carolina has advantages and everything like that. And it's going to look really, really good, I think. Get to these last couple of comments and I'm out of here. Aaliyah says lots of Stars fans don't like Mikko. They want Stank back. Well, that ain't happening. They ain't getting him back. That boy's found a home with us. Dylan says, I went to the 600 in 04. Jimmy won, or maybe 03 when Harvick had the black and silver car. Yeah, I like that one. The silver flames with the black. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Harvick was actually my favorite driver other than Junior back then. So, and you know who my favorite was before that, but he's unfortunately no longer with us. But all right, guys. Wait, here we go. One more. BTS says, would you rather lose in the playoffs to the Stanley Cup champion or lose in the playoffs to another loser? I don't want to lose to the Devils. I don't want to lose to the Capitals. I don't want to lose to the Lightning. I don't want to lose to the Panthers. And I don't want to lose to the Stars should we both get to the Stanley Cup finals. Anybody other than that, I think I could kind of live with losing, but here's one thing I'm eternally grateful for. After Washington beat Vegas in the Stanley Cup Finals a couple of seasons ago, let's say that Carolina had gotten past Florida and then went and lost to Vegas in the Stanley Cup Finals, I would have never fucking heard the end of it from everybody up here. We were like, yo, Brandon, what happened, bro? We beat Vegas. What happened to Carolina? I already know they would have done that to me because I would have done the exact same shit to them if it was me. But, all right, guys, I'm hungry. I will see y'all later. Thank you very much for joining me. I might do this again tomorrow night. I will try my best. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. I will try. Thank you, guys. I will see y'all later.